What's up you guys, and welcome back to another Reddit reading video. Today we're going to be doing r/ProRevenge, my absolute favorite sub on Reddit. I'm going to keep my big mouth shut and just jump into this one. Mess with my dog? I will salt the earth. Warning, long story, didn't realize how much background I had to tell. A bit of background first, to make this make sense. I rent a home from a guy that also runs a business on the property. There are two homes, his home and our rental, and our two work buildings, a small warehouse and a large garage. These buildings all share the same address. This is important. There's a woman that works in one of those buildings named Pam. Her real name, because if Pam is reading this, I sincerely hope she eats dick. Well, about 9 months ago, we got a dog. She's less than a year old and is still learning how to walk on a leash and stuff. She loves being outside so much that she will cry all day if we don't let her out for at least a few hours. Also, we have her on a special food and monitor her water because she will drink it until she barfs. We still love her, but she is dumb as heck. Well, the property doesn't have a fenced in yard, so she was stuck with taking a bunch of walks a day until we installed a dog run type thing. It's high up and she is tethered to it. It gives her a bunch of shade, about 20 to 25 feet of runaround / play space. She gets a reasonable amount of water all day as we have one person home at all times. Well, Pam comes over a couple months ago to tell me I should give the dog back to the shelter because I don't play with her enough and she's tied up outside. I rolled my eyes and say, thanks, but you don't live here and don't know our situation, and close the door in her face. Well, she has spent the last couple months harassing us. She tried taking the dog off the tether when she thinks we aren't home. She's been successful a couple times, giving her food, giving her water, playing with her, except for puppy kidnapping. These don't sound too bad, I know, but there's context. We tell her to leave us alone at least 3 times in person and once in writing. Finally, she gets fed up and calls the police. We have no idea she did it until the officer shows up. He asks for our side of the story and I tell him that we don't let her run free as this is a rural area and she's a baby. She could get hurt or lost. We don't want her feeding the dog because she has a special diet and messes with her stomach. We don't want her water because of throwing up issues and she's giving it in a plastic coffee container that she could chew and swallow bits of plastic and need surgery or die. We don't want her coming over playing with the dog because she uses her sleeve as a toy. We are now struggling to train the dog not to bite people's sleeves. The officer hears our side and checks on the dog and says not only is our setup compliant with the law, it's one of the best he's ever seen. He said not to worry, that we're doing nothing wrong and that this Pam lady doesn't seem all there and thinks the dog should go free. Do not let her do that. We contact our local landlord and tell him what happened, and that we don't want to see his employee on the property line for the house we are renting. I'm not asking she be fired or anything, just that I don't have to see her. The landlord basically says, not my problem, that's between you and her. I legally can't do anything. You have to follow the law. Well, we sit with that for a couple weeks and she starts back up again. This time we've had it and storm outside when she shows up. She gets between us and our dog and refuses to move. We're trying to get the dog from her and she won't let us. That's enough for me. So I took the bowl of water I was carrying and poured it over her head. No regrets. She deserved it. And she is in shock that I did that. The same way a Karen is shocked when someone calls her out. I tell her for the millionth time she isn't welcome here and she yells, "Call the police then!" Here's where the compliance starts. The landlord refusing to take sides of our repeated attempt to ask for help means I'm left to figure this out by myself. I said to the landlord, if you don't handle it, I will do anything I legally can to fix the situation. He said, okay, he's not taking sides. Cool. I call the police. I still have the card from the first officer that showed up and referenced him and told him how she's already been advised by an officer to leave us alone. The new officer issued a trespass order against her. The order specifically states that she is not allowed on the address to the house or any affiliated buildings or land on that lot. She's not allowed to come to the property for work. The landlord then gets mad and tells us to revoke it so he could use her for work. We refuse. In fact, since he didn't help us and told us to go by the laws, that's what we are doing. We didn't have a rental contract. He wants us to pay in cash for tax reasons, and he won't fix anything at the house, so it's basically a slumlord. Guess he was only getting checks from now on. And I'll be deducting the cost to fix stuff around the house from rent, as I am allowed to by law. In fact, I'm even willing to sign a rental agreement. Since this house is not up to code and doesn't have a separate area, I'm well within my rights to sign a lease and kick him and the business out of the larger house. If he tries to fight that, or he has to explain to a court why he didn't file any rental income on his taxes and then reimburse us for all the rent we've paid to live in a house that he was expressly told by the city he couldn't rent out, we found this out recently. His business is also dumping waste and burning waste on a property which is not compliant in the law. Guess who's calling to report that? He also doesn't offer protective gear to his employees, has a ton of OSHA violations, and has a post to required stuff about labor laws. I'll be reporting that too, Because if you don't want to follow the laws, I have no problem with that. Oh man, this guy got revenge on everybody. The top comment says, to this day, she thinks she was trying to save an innocent puppy from neglectful owners. She's probably one of those self-righteous, like super self-righteous people that think only their opinion and their thoughts are right. Thank God the police had some sense. Looks like we have time for another story. Management tries to fire me. I turned the tables. I had a manager try and fire me for being rude to a caller. She wanted us to call internationally to confirm insurance. I asked the current floor supervisor if we could, and he said no. So I told the caller we couldn't. She ended the call and went to ask the supervisor if there was anything we could do and was told we could not. I asked him to email that answer to me, and he did. I got called in and told I was unprofessional on the phone, and that I was not following correct procedures, and that I was being investigated with consideration that I would be fired. My supervisor had no spine, so it was an agreement that I needed to be fired. I was told we do not ever tell a member no, and that she had spoken with the supervisor who had told me to say no, and he denied it and claimed I never asked him. Luckily, I had 3 years of weekly emails I saved and printed out that showed me every Thursday asking my supervisor if I was doing okay on the phones, how I could improve, and if there were any classes I could take to improve my skill and knowledge. Every reply was praise, with how I was doing well, how I was being considered as, or doing well as a trainer. I became one after a year. Every single QA review gave me 100% scores, and I was the only one in the whole team to consistently got 100% reviews. I had a large file full of customer complaints where they asked me to speak with a supervisor to praise my work, and then I'm given a certificate. I also included the email from the supervisor who instructed me to say no. I quietly put this all together in an inch-thick file and made 3 copies. I was called back to discuss my reprehensible behavior and to review calls I had made as evidence of my bad service. As we listened to the manager pointed out how cold and emotionless I sounded, I agreed that it could have been taken this way if one were to look for a problem. But my phone voice is always calm and careful, so that I am easily understood. I have been told how much it is appreciated by our callers since we mostly deal with the elderly in doctor offices, and they appreciated that my information was clearly represented, since misunderstandings can be very bad. I had customer compliments that often included appreciation for the way I spoke. 3 out of 5 calls we reviewed, she said, were the worst interactions she had ever heard. I said that was odd since I had a certificate for all 3 calls, signed by my supervisor and her, and certificates weren't given out until the call was listened to. The other 2 problematic calls were ones I hadn't received at a 100% score by the Q&A department. So I asked, well, my supervisor is telling me weekly that I'm doing the best on the team, the QA department is telling me I'm always meeting 100% of my goals, and the customers are giving me positive reviews. So, if my attitude has been such a problem for so long, why wasn't it addressed before? No answer. I demanded to be known why this issue was allowed to be continued for so long. The manager asked me to return to my desk, but asked that I leave my folder of evidence for review, which I did. I went to lunch, and when I returned, I was told there was a computer error that wiped my email profile and all saved emails from my email account, and my computer had been reformatted to fix the error. I asked the supervisor about it, and she said she needed to talk to the manager. I was called in again and told without any evidence to back up my claims of 100% QA scores and my customer appreciation certificates. They had no choice but to move forward. I asked where my printed copy went, and my manager claimed she didn't have it and that I had never given her a copy. So I pulled out another copy of the file paperwork and explained that deleting it off my computer nor the copy she had no access to on the company cloud, which is where I backed up my information daily. Something that was so uncommon, the supervisor didn't even know it was something we could do. I then asked for an HR representative. The manager said I waived my right to having an HR rep when I didn't ask for one at the start of this mess. I said the matter should be put to rest, and the manager said she was the one who decided this, and she was the one in charge. She also handed me a write-up and demanded I sign it. I took the time to read it, and of course, they had me admitting I was 100% at fault and that I would not retaliate in the slightest regards of action. It wasn't even the company's disciplinary form, it was a written in Word. I was done. I decided just to go with the nuclear option. Instead of quietly trying to talk to the HR, I went above their heads. I grabbed the write-up and walked out. Manager went to stop me until she saw me walk into the office of the director of all the call centers in the company, a guy who was magnitudes above her and who I was on friendly terms with. He asked what was up, and I told him that the manager was in the process of trying to fire me. I gave him the write-up and my folder of evidence. He went from friendly, disinterested to dead serious. 30 minutes later, he finished reviewing everything and said, "Follow me." We returned to the manager's office and she turned white when director told manager to call supervisor and HR. He kept asking her what he was trying to do, why she was going after me, and why she felt it was okay to try and delete evidence off my computer. He never yelled. He would ask her questions and then patiently wait for an answer, which she couldn't give. Whenever she would bring me up or look at me, the director would say something like, "No, don't look at him. You and I are talking right now." When the supervisor arrived, he did the same to her. No answers, just stammering and half excuses. HR arrived and manager jumped to speak over and give her side. Supervisor did the same once manager was done. They were clearly trying to run out the clock since HR had a small department and had blocked out time for meetings. I finally mentioned that this was the HR person that said they had canceled all other meetings today and she would be there as long as it took to get to the bottom of the issue. Manager looked enraged. Supervisor looked pale and terrified. I wasn't taken to a separate office to give my side. Manager said she had the right to be there and the director told her, the supervisor, that they had the right to sit there and wait. Both were told they were not to leave until he told me they could, because both were known to disappear and go home if any problems had happened on the floor. HR, director, and I had a nice chat. We went over my evidence and call history, listened to the call, and started the whole landslide, and then asked if there was anything I could have done better. I said I could have asked a different supervisor for help. I used the HR person's laptop to pull up my stuff I had saved on the cloud, and there it was, document after document, proving my slide. Emails from supervisor, emails from manager, all praising me, proof of my 100% QAs, everything. Director was almost gleeful that he finally had something concrete because there had been complaints about the manager and supervisor. But those complaining never did anything. He called the QA manager in and got a statement about QA scores and how I was professional 100% of the time. He pulled in supervisors from other teams who confirmed I was a pleasure to work with and always went above and beyond to help. It felt pretty good to know I was actually appreciated by people who matter. You don't get that often in a call center environment. They agreed that I had done nothing wrong and asked that as far as they were concerned, their matter was closed for me. But they would be looking into my manager and supervisor. They couldn't tell me anything official, of course. Manager and supervisor got official disciplinary actions with threat to terminate if they were caught doing this ever again. The supervisor was demoted and transferred out of the department completely. I heard that it basically ruined her career with the company since the actions were so serious. Manager ended up moving to a different office with lower pay and about 40 minutes farther from her home because her action against me opened up the floorgates against her and she could be fired or take far worse position. She ended up quitting after about a month. Why did the supervisor and manager decide they hated me? I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly what caused it, but apparently they had problems with me for a couple years and would talk to other employees behind my back about me, about what a lazy bad employee I was. Of course, some people agreed, that's the nature of the beast, but it was rewarding to know that most of them disagreed. Keep your paper trail, folks, and be friendly to the upper management. Oh my goodness. Good on him for keeping those backups. That is dedication to your work. Save them on the cloud, bring in 3 file folders. That is preparation at its finest. Being safe like that and protecting yourself like that really helped him keep his job, which is amazing for him. And got those jerk manager and supervisor demoted and kicked out or whatever. Get those people out of here. This is the only time I haven't had to say like a bunch of stuff before the video, so let's just go ahead and jump into this ProRevenge story, which is, want to go on vacation and not pay us for the work? Won't be home for the few days after informing us? Sure. My grandpa's on my do not ever screw with list. And anyway, short list. Taught Shotokan overseas in Korea, one of the highest ranked black belts outside of Japan. I have seen security footage of his bar fights, it's legit. Was a personal bodyguard during the 70s for the governors in our state. Worked construction for decades. One of 2 master carpenters in my state, which leads to this story. During summers, I would work with my gramp doing a lot of his manual monkey labor. Shingles up to the roof, mix concrete, sand floors, keep everything tidy, etc. He had been screwed over the years as many general and subcontractors are, and as the years went by, his contracts for work go more and more specific, i.e. payments on a certain schedule, new/unexpected costs, and how they were dealt with, etc. One particular job started out pretty normal. He's hired to build a new deck with the new patio/driveway. Patio for this guy, let's call him Poop Brain. New construction, newer house, easy job. Gramps had even done work for him in the past. No problems. Deck to be partly covered. 10 by 50 in the front of the house. 4 feet up with concrete stairs. Brand new door. Brand new picture window, 4 by 8. Driveway is to be stained, freshly poured between the new deck and the garage. Grandpa built a few years ago. Guy was even going to go on vacation for a few weeks. We can get the job done in those 3 weeks if we bust it. Guy pays 50% of the estimated up front and was to pay the remaining 50% over the agreed time. Now, this first payment covered all material for the original estimate and paid us basically minimum wage for the hours we'd put in. The next few installments would cover the subcontractor for pouring the driveway and the remaining hourly wages. Weekend 1 pass. No agreed payment. Guy's on vacation, maybe he forgot to set up autopay. Whatever. Sending pictures on AOL email. The original concrete stairs had been removed. New door was in place. Deck was framed out, but we didn't hear from Poop Brain. Weekend 2 passed. Dang. No pay yet, but the work needs to be done. Concrete guys are here for the new slab of stairs. Let's get it done so we can move on to new jobs. Subcontractor is a longtime family friend and distant relative. Let's call him Timmy. Does us a favor and pour/stains on an IOU. Send more pictures on AOL. No response from Poop Brain. Week 3, we finished our work 2 days early. Subcontractor has finally finished our work. It looks amazing, up on the nice hill, but we haven't been paid for this work. Gramp finally gets Poop Brain on the phone. Gramp. Hey Poop Brain, how's vacation? Blah blah blah, skip forward 3 to 5 minutes. Grandpa is a talker and lived in a vacation state for a few years. Great. Glad you had a great time while I was here busting it. Holy heck, it's been hot. What do you think of the work? Poop Brain. Oh, it looks great. We'll be home later the day after tomorrow. We're having a good time with these XYZ. Gramp. Well, glad you're going to enjoy it. Oh, hey, seems like your bank didn't pay us on schedule agreement. Poop Brain. So? Gramp. Excuse me? Poop Brain. So what? I'm not paying you the rest of the money. Work's done. Tough luck, old sucker. Gramp. I understand. Click. Gramp. Well, OP, let's get to work. Oh. And get Timmy on the phone. Poop Brain had that large garage Gramp had built years ago, and the guy let us use it to store equipment while they were out. First, the brand new door was removed and placed in the garage. Then, each piece of brand new deck was removed and placed in the garage. Sadly, the posts were 36 inches deep, but hey, a 4x4 truck pulled those out of the ground nice and good after a bit of shoveling. Those were also placed in the garage. Window was also removed from the frame and placed on top of this pile. Deconstruction is much faster than construction after all. Timmy was rather unhappy as well about not getting paid, but hey, we found out that the new stairs we poured moved well enough across the new driveway and patio, and some bleach took care of the stain we put on the patio. Sadly, it had a few chips from all of our ruckus, and someone made the time to take a diamond saw and cut the way through the seams. Sadly, now it'll settle at an uneven rate, but all the material Poop Brain paid for, he got to keep. We even went to the garage in the evening and made sure his front door was locked, you know, for security. Even a few tools we needed for the job, which Poop Brain paid for, stayed in the garage. Fast forward 2 days, Poop Brain comes home and throws a poop storm. It had stormed, and his AC had been running non-stop, with the increase of draft to the front door of the house. Of course, he threatens Gramp with a lawsuit and the police, which just made Gramp laugh. A close relative was an assistant chief of police in our small town, unbeknownst to Poop Brain. We did everything we were contractually obligated and paid to do. All the equipment, all the materials were Poop Brain's possession. That is, after all, what he paid us for. Poop Brain blustered a lot, but it did screw all. Fast forward a bit, no one in the local union will deal with the guy. Gramps and Timmy were both pretty well respected and do a lot of work around town. Someone from out of town ends up fixing the issues and does a poop job of it. Dang. TLDR, if you want to screw over a general contractor, do it after you get home. And string it out. Don't screw them over before you get home from vacation. General contractors generally have to move quickly to the next job if they want to make money. And the vast majority of the time, they won't have the funds to try and collect. We have no idea why Poop Brain tried to pull that junk on us, but since Poop Brain had paid us well on time for the garage job, Gramp ignored the inner voice. Dang, that's some really good revenge. See, this is one of those stories that people, probably wouldn't even see just because it only has 300 some upvotes, but it was still really good that Grandpa got some good revenge on some guy that really deserved it. Congrats to you, Gramps. Okay, you guys, that was our only one story for the day. This is the part where you can click off if you would like to or hear me ramble on just a tad for a couple of seconds at the end. If you are leaving, if you like the video, then hit that like, and if you're new here, hit the subscribe. For the people that are staying, if you guys have any suggestions for subs that you would like me to do, let me know down in the comments, you guys. ProRevenge and Maliciouscompliance are definitely Maliciouscompliance is my #1, ProRevenge is my #2 for my own favorite. But I want to know what you guys think are the best ones for me to do, and like which ones sound the best. Cause like the views fluctuate from subreddits to subreddits. And I just want to make sure that I'm doing some stuff that you guys really enjoy here. I really appreciate you guys for watching the videos and subscribing and commenting and doing all that awesome stuff. We are on our way to 1,000 subscribers. We are like over 600 now already in under 4 months, which is crazy. It's crazy to think about. We're also coming up on almost 200 videos now. The 200 videos probably have a reason for why we probably have so much growth at the beginning. I really should have spread out the videos more, but yeah, hey, what's done is done. If you guys think I should post once a day or maybe like once every 2 days, then just let me know. If I post once every 2 days, I can make like 15 to 30 minute videos, but if I post like once a day, it'd probably have to stay somewhere between 7 to 15 minutes in a video. I just want to get all this out right now so you guys know. Also, if you guys like the live streams, tell me. If you do not, tell me. I want to get everything clear and out there right now. Just get everyone's opinions on everything. What's up you guys, and welcome back to another Reddit reading video. I'm sorry if you hear a little bit of rain or a little bit of wind outside. There's a little hurricane named Dorian out there just blowing stuff around. But I decided I also want to get this video done before I shut down my computer. So I hope you guys really enjoy this r/ProRevenge video. Try to convert me not once, not twice, but thrice? I think not. My dad is a pretty easygoing guy, usually pretty calm, but like everyone else, he has this potential to blow up at someone if they kept at him enough. This was in the early 90s. I was playing in front of the yard and a couple people came up and asked if my parents were home. I nodded, pointed toward the bottom door, and they knocked. These guys were Jehovah's Witnesses, and it was my first exposure to evangelism. Gotta put it out there that neither my father nor I have issue with witnesses. We aren't a really religious family at all, but each to their own. When my dad came to the door, he was still in work clothes from yard work. Maybe a little tired, but he told the guy he wasn't interested. It wasn't a super courteous reaction, but it wasn't rude either. It just seemed like something he didn't feel like dealing with. Flash forward an hour later, two other young men show up at the house. My dad was in his robe at this point. The robe was like his freaking uniform for not doing anything. Once the yard work was done, it was time to watch golf and relax. He went down to his cave, and that was it. Now, there was a knock on the door. And my dad, mom was out of the house, had to deal with it. He was very matter of fact with people. It sounded like a lecture at this point. Listen guys, you gotta coordinate a little bit more. You've already been here once today. Do you know where you're going over the same area that someone else did? This is my Saturday. I'm just trying to relax. They apologized quickly and left, skipping our neighbors in the process. Let's head 3 more hours into the future. There was a third knock on the door. I could hear my dad coming up from the basement. Son of a B! He opened the door and the two young men started in their pitch. Do you have time to share with us good news with you? My father replied. Absolutely, come downstairs. To paint a picture of my dad's basement, he has his home office on the left. On the right was a den area with a lazy boy, or a sofa with extra lazy. It was about 4 in the afternoon now. He pointed at the sofa, then turned to the lazy boy to face them, like some sort of middle-class godfather type. He reached into his robe and they sat down across from him, eager to tell him about their mission. He pulled out a pack of cigarettes and offered it to the men. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't smoke. As people, correct. Well, let's call that one strike. My dad started chain smoking Camels until the whole basement was hazy. Please, continue. This made them uncomfortable, but they continued. After another 10 minutes, my father excused himself, came back down with a bottle of cheap scotch and 3 glasses. Apparently, witnesses can drink alcohol, but these guys weren't having any. They politely refused, but they were getting nervous. Meanwhile, my dad started slamming scotch like it was bottled water, and the witnesses kept on with the witnessing. At this point, my dad was no longer acting drunk. He was drunk. You guys want to see something pretty neat? My dad walked over to a padlock closet of his office. He unlocked it and started removing guns and stacking them on his desk. How in the heck do you lose a live grenade? Oh, I think I see it. Thank you for your time, sir. They got up and showed themselves up to the door. My dad had a chuckle about it and then passed out on the couch. I got the majority of the story at dinner while my dad was explaining to my mom why he was flushed so early in the evening. I would get other bits of the story as I'm older. My parents lived in that house another 15 years before moving, and they never had another Jehovah's Witness show up at their house. Wow, that's a good way to deter Jehovah's Witnesses, I'm not gonna lie. Let's see what this first top comment says. Pretty much this comment is saying is like, all you have to do is say that you are disfellowshipped, and they can't talk to you. Pretty much, if you get disfellowshipped, that means you've been disowned, and if you talk to someone that's been disowned, you'll get disowned yourself. What's crazy about this is I used to be in like a really like cultish church, like Christian church too when I was younger, like a teenager, and anytime someone would leave or get kicked out of the church, no one was allowed to talk to them, and that actually ended up happening to me, and then no one was allowed to talk to me. It was crazy. Let's get one more little ProRevenge story in here. This one's actually from a couple days ago. Take my money, sell me junk, then be prepared to lose your business. So a few decades back, I was involved in a group of guys with a little money, and we wanted something substantial to invest in. We decided to buy a restaurant franchise. I will not even say what kind, as we could identify with me. Well, everything was going along swimmingly until my partners backed out. I, unfortunately, was the face of the group, and my signature was on the bottom line, so I got stuck running the place. As soon as it became apparent that there were a lot of inconsistencies, the big number one was that the sales and the prospects were nowhere near what was being generated. Then there were other things, customers calling for their regular order. Well, it turned out that my particular franchise had been used for the past several years to deal grass for various drugs. The former manager had made some serious coin and was not happy that I had purchased his place. Well, life is not fun when you have just sunk 6 figures and the likelihood that you have just flushed it down the toilet. However, I was not going to be trifled by this. First, I called the accounting firm who signed off for the prospects. The partner in charge was taken back. They had never signed off. I presented myself in their offices and spent the next few hours with them and their attorneys. Their name could not be associated with something fraudulent. Next, I wanted my money back, and the chief franchisor told me that they would immediately put mine up for sale. But the market was not quite as high as it was when I bought it. Less than 3 months previously, then the prick had the audacity to demand that I paid for my last order from the commissary. Something else to consider. I took the price list provided by the central commissary that we as a franchise were compelled to use. Buying fruits, vegetables, cheese, and meats from outside the system would be accompanied by fines from the franchisor. I marched myself back to the accounting firm and asked for a little bit of analysis. Turned out, commissary prices were from 10 to 300% higher than market. In other words, the franchisor was not interested in food. They were interested in turning around franchising. Well, that little report found its way into the hands of 20 local franchises. Suddenly, the central commissary was not being used. The district manager starts showing up written fines. Turns out, the district manager, this guy is who's supplying the manager of my franchise. I have him on discarded VHS security tapes selling. So I take the tapes to the accounting firm for the secure storage. Then I go to the franchisor's office. I lay it on the line. I have that their district guy selling drugs in my restaurant. They laugh at me until I tell them that I was the one who supplied the report for the rest of their franchises. Oh, and by the way, we're starting an action against you. I then showed them that we had placed lines on the building they owned, their commissary, their homes, and their vehicles. I have enough to put you guys in jail. So their mental giants sit me down, write up a little release, and go get me certified to check for every dime I put into the franchise. I agreed to the release. However, they do not realize that they are gouging, and the evidence is still in the hands of others. All they succeeded in doing was to get me off the list of owners suing them. Well, the case came to court, and who do you think was on the stand giving a complete rundown? One of them stood up in court and said, "Didn't we pay you to shut up?" "No, you refunded me the money you stole." Now they had 19 other guys taking them apart. I heard one of the franchisors cry when they took his Porsche. His wife left him soon after. Oh my goodness, wow, that guy is like, he really stands for justice and he got his little revenge. It's not every day you see like the honest working guy get his you know, what he deserves, and then having the owners get what they deserve too, which is usually negative. That's why a lot of these stories are so satisfying. But if you guys want more malicious compliance, just let me know down below and we'll have those on the way. Also, when I do the 1 hour Reddit videos, they're always like rerun videos. So I'll just put like 5 or 6 ProRevenge stories all together, just so you know. So if you don't want to watch them all again, just like, those are the 1 hour ones. So today we have, I'm not paying a finder's fee for stolen property. Thief earns himself a felony instead. I had just moved to a new city for work and had been working here for about 3 months, so I'm still pretty new to the area. My apartment complex, I would say, is a nicer part of the city and is pretty nice, well kept, so I didn't really expect anyone to go and try and breaking into cars. So I had packed everything for my week-long trip the night before so that I could get up and just get on the road. The next morning, I walk out to my car and see clothes off to the side of my car and thinking it was weird and started to look around the car. Turns out, my car had been broken into and was cleaned out. Out of the trunk, they took my laptop bag, which had both my personal computer and government computer. 2 gym bags, one that had my work clothes and the other that had my workout clothes and personal hygiene stuff. And then a backpack that had my Nintendo Switch and office supplies in it. They also took $50 out of the console where I keep change and random bills for parking. This obviously throws a wrench into my work travel, so I call my supervisor, explain the situation, and come back into work. It's my fault I left that stuff in the car, so I had to go to our security/IT office and explain what had happened, and see what the next steps were to get a new work computer. During this meeting, the physical security manager, which was about 3 hours after I found my car broken into, I get a call from a local number that turns out this guy had found my laptops on the side of the road when he was coming home from visiting his mom. My back had a "contact me if you find blank blank phone number." Conversation goes as follows. Guy: "Hey man, I found your laptop on the side of the road. I figured you'd want to get them back. They look pretty important. Government laptops are plastered with stickers with official jargon on returning instructions." Me: For sure, I'm currently working now, but I can come meet you or whatever works. Guy. Yeah man, I'm just coming back from visiting my mom, so I'm trying to get home so I can relax. Me. Cool, I can make it work. Can you text me your address and everything so I can just come to you? Guy. I'll send it to you in a second. It's also my birthday, so if I can get some money for like the finder's fee or whatever, I think that would be cool. Me. Yeah man, whatever you need. See you in a bit. As soon as I get off the phone, I'll call the local police in the area and explain that this guy is trying to extort money from me to get stolen goods back. They instruct me to meet them a few blocks away from the residence, so they will send me a plainclothes cop and officer to act on my behalf. So I am not in direct contact with the guy, just in case since the situation sounds sketchy. I go and meet them where they go to the residence. The guy is hesitant seeing the cop cars and takes a few minutes to return the bag, with the laptops in it. They bring the bag back to me to identify the laptops, and everything's still there. I accept the bag and got my laptops back. Easy enough. On the drive back to work, no more than 15 minutes later, this guy still had my number and starts going off. Bad unreadable spelling, and is seething through text messages on how I could get the police involved. He was trying to be a good Samaritan, and he should have thrown my junk in the garbin. So I did the normal thing and blocked the number. Now, I'm still missing everything else, including the Nintendo Switch, what was in my case with 7 games. Important. I was originally going to take the loss on it and take it as a stupidity tax, since it was almost impossible to get back. However, something didn't sit right with me with this guy, and thinking if he did have it, he was going to try to sell it fast and cheap. I went on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, searching for a Switch for cheap around the same location of this area. Bingo. The ad read, 200 Nintendo Switch, 7 games, and case slightly used. No charger or dock. Must be gone today. The location was enabled and was within 2 miles of his address. The phone number was the same, and the dock and the charger were in my apartment. So I had a buddy of mine who lived the next city over contacting him asking if he would hold on to it till tomorrow, since he wouldn't be in town until the next day and he would pay him $300 instead. The dude agrees and also gets him to read off all 7 games that were there. This was to buy us more time so I can coordinate with the police. The next morning, I get everything together and go make a case to the police to assist me with this. Police report, the Craigslist ad, the serial number from the Nintendo, the screenshots of the text messages between me and my buddy. I make the case and the police agree to do the same thing as the day before and meet me somewhere else to go over what the plan was. I meet them and go over his address with what I had missing. These are different officers than the other day. These are different officers than the day before, and they recognize the address and the name. We find out this guy is known for this stuff and is currently on probation. So we come up with the plan where my buddy will call on his work phone so we can hear the conversation and call him on his regular phone to see what's going on. The police use a plain car to go and meet up at the spot, and acting like my buddy, scoop the guy up and get him to cough up the rest of the stolen goods. They were able to recover all my items including my clothes and bags. He ended up going to jail and earns a new felony on his record for receiving stolen property. I think I would have lost the rest of it if I didn't go digging on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. TLDR, car got broken into and had $2,000 worth of stuff stolen. Thief calls me for a finder's fee after some Craigslist pursuing and ended up getting everything back, and the thief a new felony charge. And Justice Boner, well played OP, I'm glad you got your stuff back. Yeah, that is really awesome. That's nice, good work. He did his detective work and got his stuff back. It is a bad idea to leave your stuff in a car overnight, especially if you had any of it like just showing, but yeah, there's no way in heck you should leave $2,000 worth of stuff in a car when you have a house. It's better just to bring it all out and not get your stuff stolen. But I'm glad this guy got his just desserts and a brand new felony. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And that is going to be the video, guys. If you guys enjoyed it, then let me know down in the comments, like and subscribe. I know I forget to say that like every single time. Again, I said at the beginning of the video, let me know if you guys want ProRevenge more or Malicious Compliance. And if you guys don't like these reading subs, then let me know and I can do some of the more like picture-y kind of ones where I just kind of react. I'm going to put a poll in my community tab. If you want to go over to my community tab, I'm going to put like, you know, do you want r/ProRevenge? r/Maliciouscompliance, or r/other, which is going to be like anything other, and then just like put what you want in the comments, and that's going to help me like big time so I know like what's going to post. Right now our biggest videos are the two 1-hour videos. We got a 1 hour Malicious Compliance and 1 hour ProRevenge. What a lot of people do is listen to them at nighttime. At 2 a.m. we get this spike out of nowhere, like 200 and 300 views, and throughout the day we only get like 30 to 60. Boom, as soon as we hit 2 a.m. it skyrockets. It's crazy. I'll put a little screenshot in. Look at this. Boom, boom. Thank you guys for staying tuned and watching these videos, even though I'm sometimes inconsistent with, I post on here, I post on my other YouTube channel, I post on TikTok, I post on Likey. I work for kind of a lot of video making things, so sometimes it's hard to keep up, but this is my favorite one to do because I also enjoy Reddit stories. You gotta really like catch on to these stories because they are so good. These things run deep. I don't think I'll ever stop reading r/ProRevenge. Even if I start doing some other stuff, this will always be number one. So let's get into the story. 98%. It all started on the first day of college, many moons ago. I was new, she was new. We didn't know jack about the campus or the life. We started out as friends. It deteriorated fast from there. The girl, I'll call her Jane for simplicity, though that's not her real name, was this tall, high-pitched, isn't that cute blonde girl. At first, I thought she was harmless, and while I don't subscribe to that kind of behavior, I did not judge her for it. For the first 2 weeks, things were fine. We were branching out and making new friends. And then, she was friends with all my friends, and eventually moved into my dorm. I thought it was a bit extreme, as she hadn't spoken to us about it first, but we let it happen. We were friends. Then, after talking about body image issues, she started making these little comments. Nothing too out there, but things that were noticeable to me because they were aimed, but not to other people because they were like casual. Like, don't you ever exercise? And when was the last time you had a salad? I told myself I was being hypersensitive because it was on my mind, but quickly realized it wasn't me, it was her. Whenever we were alone, there were marks were suddenly scathing and cut really deep. I told my friends about it and she told me I was being sensitive. Jane was too sweet to say anything like that. You put in context where there isn't any, so I let it drop. Then, she used my friends against me to invite her on vacation. I didn't want her to come. I felt pressure because my then close friends were asking why I wouldn't invite her. And I was pretty hard on myself. I thought that if I didn't let her go, they'd never talk to me again. So she came, and she ruined the holiday. I couldn't do anything because I wanted to do something different. She'd wander off without telling me first, she'd listen to music and ignore me, and whenever I insisted we split up, she'd accuse me of trying to let her get attacked on the streets. Holiday's over, we go home, we don't speak for a while. And then there's a pretty dark turn of events on campus, details of which I don't want to divulge, but it was around Christmas, and no one was feeling the spirit. Jane asked if we can decorate the hall, and we all say no. I guess I should have seen it coming, but I woke up in the morning to what was essentially Santa's grotto. I was furious. I definitely overreacted, but I tore it all down. I was so angry she ignored everyone. Some of us were suffering as a result of the aforementioned. Some of us were homesick. None of us wanted to think about Christmas until we were home, and she didn't care. She stormed out and I apologized a few days later, only to be blanked. Which was fair enough. I shouldn't have done what I did. The following semester is a stress. I deal with a lot of junk from Jane, and when I tell people what she's doing, I'm called a liar or accused of trying to sabotage because I'm jealous. She invited 4 boys over for a date at the same time and then leaves the building. She makes a mess in the kitchen and she leaves it for me to clean up, despite announcing herself of having like OCD or something. She was the cleanest person when others were there, but when it was just me, she was a slob. Of course, no one believed me. I genuinely felt alone and hurt, like I was going crazy. I hadn't been bullied since I was 12. I wasn't sure what was happening, and everyone I knew talked to Jane, and they had the same opinion. She was so sweet. The year ends and the next 2 years go by and she's not living with us again, but she starts to date within our friend group. People were a little more accepting of what I was saying. I feel vindictive every time she behaves in a way that proves I wasn't lying, saying I'd hate to carry a little extra weight to the girls who are sensitive about their weight and bigger than she is. Dating one of our friends and dropping him like a hat, being ungrateful as a secret Santa. I finally feel like everyone is seeing my point of view, but that was 3 years too late. She made me feel like a horrible person and brought out the worst in me, though I know I should have better control over myself. Well, this is where it gets beautiful. I worked in my college as an elected officer. I held this position for almost the entire time there. I was known for being good at this job. So color me surprised when I wake up to one morning to find both mine and James' name on the ballot paper. I was nervous. I love that job and really worked hard at it. It was voluntary. That took up a lot of my time, but it was helping people and I was incredibly passionate about it. I couldn't believe she would go for it, and I was shocked since she never showed much of an interest before. Well, 3 days of campaigning go by and my work is being sabotaged. Candy I had left in the kitchen with notes had been stolen. Banners and posters had been torn down. I'd been through 3 campuses in the past and had never had this problem. I spoke to the appropriate people, but I never even suggested it was Jane. I didn't want to believe it was, and I just assumed it was kids. The destruction wasn't widely known, as a lot of friends fixed the damage as they saw and replaced the posters, etc. The day before the results were due to be announced, Jane courted me and demanded I tell her I don't believe it was her. I told her that I hadn't suspected it, but mentioned that a lot of people didn't even know about it, and then walked away. This is where I had to start getting revenge. I couldn't let her take this away from me like she tried to take so many other things, but I couldn't be obvious. I had to play her game. I had to be as subtle as possible. We had to do an evening of questions where the students would ask to ensure we were good for the post. I strived to avoid saying negative outright, but it worked at ensuring people knew where I was coming from. I told them that I have been working in this area for a while and have never had contact from another student interested in helping, as most of the officers did from incoming officers. This meant they knew that Jane had shown no interest in this. People knew we weren't friends at this point, and most knew I didn't like her, though she maintained that I was being childish. People were encouraged to ask questions about the job itself and what the potential officers know about what it entails. It's just like a normal job. You need to know what you're applying for, specific of the things we work with and our understanding of terminology, etc. They asked me, I knew the answers about everything. Jane knew nothing. Normally people would just ask, what would you do in this position? Question time was over. People started talking amongst themselves. Jane was trying to do damage control, but in order to make up for her blunders, she instead chose to drag me through the mud. She mentioned things I had done wrong in the past, even things not related to the position, and was generally quite rude. Not me. I made sure I was in her earshot when I said things like, it's best to have faith in people when you don't know what they're capable of, and you shouldn't vote for me just because I'm familiar with the job. You should vote for someone with a passion too. There was a chance, obviously, that I was shooting myself in the foot and encouraging the vote for Jane, but the people she spoke to heard me saying neutral things about both of us. This was the first part of me trying to get revenge and really out her for who she is. I posted on Facebook the day before the elections that I was excited about the results, and that no matter what happened, I'd enjoy my time in the position. Jane posted about people who should vote for her. She was the only one to use the final hour of voting to post about herself. Had she done any research, she'd have known it was common practice to use the last hour to encourage voting, but in a general level, no self-promotion. She already looked bad, but she was well liked across the campus as far as I knew. We studied different things, so I knew I'd lost the voters to people in her classes, and I also knew that some people in my classes spoke well of her. I originally told them the truth, but no one believed me, so instead I told stories, mentioned things where she had done casually, so it didn't sound like gossip. I mixed them in with other stories. I was planting the seeds so that they knew what she was like. There was no way to know what the effect of that was, so I simply hoped it worked. All in all, she'd done her best to ruin my life and make me feel bad for weeks. She lied about me, put me down, and tried to turn my friends against me. The election was beginning to feel like a public execution. More people than ever knew about our dislike for one another. For the last day, it seemed to be all anyone was talking about. Result day, I'm in the auditorium, it's packed. Jane is nowhere to be seen, for which I was grateful. I had to show my face, but I was anxious that if I lost, I would have to shake her hand or something. I really wasn't comfortable with that, but I had already pre-arranged a post to send out if I lost, explaining I was happy to offer assistance, which was mandatory of ex-officers anyway, and that while sad, I would find her other ways to help students, etc. They started to read the results of the other positions, and I felt sick. I genuinely felt as though my lungs were gone and my jaw was so tight my teeth hurt. Finally, they get to my position, read out mine and Jane's name, and then announced the results. We had one of the highest turnouts of voters in that particular position. The only one that got a higher number was a paid president position. I won the majority of the votes, and thousands of votes received. 98% of them were in my favor. That was the best day of my life. Someone said, you gave her enough rope, she did the rest herself. This too, I would not call this pro-revenge. I know it's on pro-revenge, I would call this also petty revenge. Because all she really did was only say kind things or neutral things about her and the person she's going against. And that's about it. I mean, she did win the day and she won the war. But she did it in a very, slight manner. It wasn't like she did this entire scheme to, ruin her life and stuff. Though she did get 98% of the people to follow what she was saying instead of, that might have been like probably her boyfriend at the time and like her favorite teacher voted for her, I guess, if that was only 2%. But that's good. I'm glad the good guy wins. It's nice when that happens in real life and not in just the movies. Instead of doing like a really low key one like I have been lately, this one is like really popular so far. 10,000 upvotes, gilded with all the kind of gilds you could ever want from ProRevenge. 14 people, including me, walk out and protest. So Friday the 13th happened. It was glorious for all intents and purposes. I run day-to-day operations for a decent-sized company. We have the president who runs the company in-house. He can be tedious, overwhelming, and all in all a dick sometimes. Other times, he can be cool. This was one of the times he was being an overbearing, micromanaging dickbag. As shop foreman, I take my job seriously with morale. If my guys aren't happy, good product isn't produced. If good product isn't produced, customers aren't happy. Looking towards quality control, it doesn't help when guys are overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated. Friday was one of those days that started out well, but by 6:40 a.m., it has deteriorated to poop. Note, we officially don't start work until 7 a.m. After the start, it was complain about this, micromanage that, several people being cussed out and belittled. Everyone had had enough. Once in our programming office, the idea was floated by someone that we shouldn't walk out. He can't fire us all. Now, we've all joked about this time after time, but it's never been more of a thought. We grit our teeth and bear it. That day was something different. After getting yelled at again for something out of control, I finally said screw it. When someone asked if I was in and serious, I said yes. Then it snowballed from there. A total of 20 were supposed to walk out, but due to cold feet and a few talking junk, only 14 made it. At 10 a.m., we made our move. I told everyone to wait until he had been distracted with the machine and we'd all clock out and leave. We all waited. When he was distracted, I gave the round up and signaled everyone and left. A few stopped for a beer to relax. We weren't intending to going back to work to negotiate until Monday. We all met up at a guy's house and discussed what we wanted and what our terms were. One thing was very clear. We all came back, or no one did. After talking for 2.5 hours and coming to our terms, we decided to head back after a text from him. We were going to corner him. We were going to talk it straight. We weren't working anymore. The talk lasted about 2 hours, with both parties flexing their given muscles at some point. But one thing was made clear, things were going to change, or we'd all be looking for new jobs. After several people were threatened with being fired and none being let go, we came to terms that benefited us. For once, our workplace had so much morale. People were excited to work again. We went back to work with a purpose, agenda, and pride. This is the first Monday I've looked forward to work in a year. Even the guys who couldn't come, the people in the main office, we stirred the pot. We've made it known. We're not gonna go through this anymore. I'll vouch for any of my men, and I'll do it again in a heartbeat. Wow, that's crazy. Good job. Kudos to this man, because usually when you do that, the guys up top have enough money to just be like, you know what, just let him go. We'll hire some new people. Just like the first story, it's nice to see like the small person win, the person that's like doing what they're supposed to do and just getting pooped on. Like this is a good example of protesting gone right instead of protesting gone wrong. Anyways, I really hope you guys enjoyed these ProRevenge stories. If you guys have any questions or comments, let me know down below. Do not forget to like and subscribe and comment and do all that. That helps the channel and the videos so much. This community just keeps on growing. Thank you guys for all that you're doing, viewing and commenting and everything. The part that you guys do is awesome. I'll be back very soon with another video. Thank you guys so much and goodbye.
Psych! That's the wrong number!
What's up you guys, welcome back to another Reddit reading video. I hope you guys are having a wonderful, amazing, fantastical day, because for some reason, I just woke up feeling really happy. Maybe it was a sleeping pill I took and I actually got some good sleep for once, but let's just get into these revenge stories. I'm ready for some good, salty revenge. Might help me fire my wicked step manager. Long post warning. I added all the background because it makes payoff so much better. The universe aligned, the stars just right for me in this story. My old coworkers and I still talk about it. Backstory. I was working at a popular coffee chain in high volume, swanky location as a barista. We were specifically trained to make fancier novelty drinks compared to other locations. I loved my team and my manager, and for the most part, everyone got along. Then, my manager informed us that she would be moving to another location, and that we would be getting a new store manager. This new manager, who we all call Jack, is an old assistant manager from this location. He trained here before becoming the store manager of his own location. Jack would be returning to be our new manager, since he had the experience in these fancier stores from training days. Everyone in the store dreaded his return. For what I gathered, Jack was an a-hole when he was an assistant manager. Within the first few weeks, things went downhill. He started writing up certain baristas constantly for infractions that others got away with. He slashed everyone's hours from full-time to part-time, claiming that our job description never stated we were entitled to full-time. One barista went from 39.75 hours a week to 16.5. Jack claimed our company had no write-up expiration date. So he was writing up baristas based on clock lateness within our time management software from when our old manager still ran the store. People went from a clean record to a final warning within one meeting with him. Those who had worked with him before organized themselves into a list of who would get fired next. We didn't suspect that there was a personal vendetta against certain baristas who knew him when he was an assistant manager. We knew there was. One by one, several people were fired, all in the order they knew they would be fired. Others found jobs elsewhere. It became a race against the clock. Either quit or wait to be fired for something trivial. We brought up these issues with our district manager, but he ignored them, slashing our hours and getting cornered, including cutting corners on cleaning standards. From proving to be beneficial to the district manager, he was not interested in helping us. I was badly burned by our drip brewer. He refused to help me fill out workers' comp report. He was too busy placing weekly orders. I had extremely bad cramps in my thigh and went to urgent care. I was one of the last walk-ins in the clinic and left after they closed. When I sent him a picture of the doctor's note, he googled the location from the letterhead and claimed I faked the note since the place was supposed to be closed. Jack belittled me and other baristas on the cafe floor. My mental and physical health suffered. When one of my good friends was fired, I quit with nothing else lined up because I feared I was either going to break down or get fired. This friend, Anthony, got me a job at my current workplace. After Anthony got fired, he struggled to make ends meet with just one job. I helped him out by preparing large batches of food and dropping them off at his workplace. I met his manager and got an interview the following week. I had been working at this place for probably 2 months when the most magical thing happened to me. The incident. I finished the closing shift of my current job and was passing by my old store, closed for the day, when I saw 2 mice running around the lobby. I filmed it. I guess cutting corners and cleaning the health standards was causing a bit of a rodent issue. In a rush of pin-up anger, watching my team get fired over nothing, watching Anthony struggle to eat, suffering at the hands of Jack myself, I posted the video to Instagram and tagged the store in it. I posted photos and links to the video on Yelp, Google reviews, the company page, the customer compliant email, everywhere. I figured at most, I was going to be the fly in his ointment and annoy him as the district manager. Then I sent the video of the mice to the Department of Health. A couple days later, the Department of Health served a coffee shop a notice saying they were preparing to do a full inspection. I heard this news from my barista friends. A couple weeks go by and my current job has a turn in management itself. We weren't getting our legally mandated half-hour breaks, and I am put on a 9-hour shift with no meals. Thankfully, HR was much more sincere than the coffee shop HR, so I arranged a meeting. I stopped by my old coffee shop before my meeting to say hello to a few friends who still work there. I noticed Jack and the district manager were there. I grabbed the water and sat down to organize my HR meeting notes. Not even a half hour later, the shift supervisor approaches my area and tells the cafe customers to leave, as the health department has shut them down. She turns to me and says, "Yes, it was your mice. They found out we had an infestation," then walks away. Jack and the district manager don't make eye contact with me. I gleefully return to my current workplace and tell Anthony about how I was actually there to see the justice happen. Justice that I started on my own hands. He tells my coworkers. Even my managers find out I shut down a whole store from one report. HR catches wind of the story before our meeting, and I've never been in a more polite, apologetic HR meeting. My managers were reprimanded, and we had all breaks restored to us. All the departed, fired baristas took pictures in front of the Department of Health shutdown notice that was taped to the store door. The windows were shuttered up, and the place was vandalized several times. They started the cleaning process, and the inspector returned to clear it again. About 2 weeks after the store shut down, I got a call from the coffee shop's HR department. Apparently, whenever they have something like this happen, they look through the records of the store. During the mass exit and the seasoned baristas and the complaints made to the district manager and HR, they had a novel about my old cafe. The HR rep asked me why I left, and the first words that come out of my mouth are, "I left because Jack the manager, and the district manager is complicit in his actions." They call all the ex-baristas and a couple current baristas for their stories with Jack, all negative. Jack was fired and banned from working with the company. He packed up and moved across country. The fancy location was taken from the district manager, and now he only oversees basic cafes. I got promoted in my current job to assistant director of the site to oversee HR complaint overhaul to improve the workplace, based on my knowledge of OSHA and state labor laws. Anthony and the other 5 baristas were offered their jobs back, which Anthony accepted. He's in a better financial situation now. TLDR, after quitting my barista job because of some really bad management, I filmed mice in the cafe and got the store shut down by the Department of Health, which resulted in an investigation that got the store manager fired. Wow, that actually, kudos to you. That is some great revenge. Like, that is some, like, revenge that you would, like, I wish I could get that type of revenge about when I was working at Wendy's. Wendy's was, like, my first real job when I was still kind of a younger teenager. Oh, I wish I could have done that to them because I hated working there and I hated those managers. They were so mean. Like the first thing that they would do to new people was, if you're gonna cry, get it out now, because they were so mean. They were like, you're a little B, aren't you, huh? Shut up, you little B. And you're just like dumbfounded and they talk to you like that. And the new cashiers and the new workers would be like, oh my God, these people are so mean. I'd feel so bad for people that would come in and cry. I wish so badly that that could have happened. I wish I could have got that kind of revenge. I'm like living through this story right now. Good job to you. Alright. Enough praise for that last story. Let's see another one. You took $200, you lost $21,000. So most users of computers will probably have some experience with us. You know when you're online shopping and sometimes a box pop-ups and says click this, promo code, sign up, yada yada? Well, we know they are scams. By mistake, I first clicked the wrong X. They put a fake one on the top and I clicked it. I immediately shut down the page and I thought that was the end of it. Nope. So the site I bought a Hanukkah gift I was getting for my mother sold my credit card information to the pop-up. I activated that when I clicked the wrong X. I was a teenager, relatively new to checking account. I checked my statement for December and it was all well. I didn't check for the next couple of months because I didn't use it for anything. There should be no charges. I know better now. When I did check, I noticed that these small insignificant charges weren't mine. Always less than $10 and usually around $2. But the multiple charges added up and was well over 200. When I looked into this, I found the connection. I called a thieving company and told them they stole my information and are illegally charging my card. They didn't deny it, but they also didn't care. I wanted my money back. They refused repeatedly. I gave them so many chances to fix everything with just that. I eventually warned them that I would have to sue if they didn't want to give me what they stole. They laughed. Turns out there was a class action suit in progress, which my lawyer used as leverage in a quick payout. We sued for fraud and violation for federal communication laws. What they are doing is very illegal and happens every day. This included a lot of popular stores and websites, which were 100% in the wrong and committed a crime. And I was a child who brought her mother a gift. I won the case. I received a judgment of $21,000. I told them it would go away if they just refunded my $200, but they refused. They seemed to think of teenager threatening to sue a massive corporation that does nothing but break the law wasn't much of a threat. What they should have noticed, I was buying a Hanukkah gift. Hanukkah. Everyone I know is a lawyer. Good job to you. I got scammed one time on Amazon when I was a kid. What I did was I bought this, like, I thought it was like this extra awesome diamond, like it was like super pure, and they like were saying they had like an abundance of diamonds and they just needed to get rid of them for super cheap. I think I spent like $150 on it, and they were saying it was like a $10,000 diamond. And like I go to bed that night, I wake up and I'm like, oh, I hope my diamond shipped, I hope it's on the way. I go and look, the listing is gone, like it's gone from all my Amazon history and stuff, but like the money is also taken out of my account. And I was a teenager and I was still doing like my first job, so I didn't know what to do. I thought like, well, I just lost. I wish I would have like known. I could have just asked for a refund or called my bank or something, but I was like maybe 16 or 17. I was just like, God dang it, I got scammed. I used to be pretty gullible, actually. Another note on that, this one like government program or something like that said if I send them $300, they'll send me $500 back for like a grant. Like, and this was like I was new in college too. I think I was like 17, and like I was like, all you need to do is send us like $300. We'll give you like $5,000 back. I was like, wow, that's a really good deal. And this is like some kind of government thing. They cannot scam me. So like I asked my mom about it and I asked my sister, and they were like, you really are trying to get scammed like that? They're like, you really that dumb where you're going to get scammed? I was like, this can't be a scam. I looked it up online and I was like, I was really that dumb. Okay, enough of my stupidity. Let's read one more this is one little paragraph of story. Someone did not give me their end of a trade, so I spent the next 2 years getting them stiffed in trades and losing them a lot of money. Back like 3 or 4 years ago when I played Magic the Gathering, I traded with this one guy for a card, Ugin the Planeswalker, which at the time was worth like $50. It was a fair trade, and me being dumb 15-year-old, I was like, let him promise to bring the card the next day. He was 1 year younger than me and went into the same store. Well, he never gave me the card, and what was I gonna do about it? Bring it to small claims for a $50 card. After a few months, I acted like I forgot about it and acted like his friend. This guy is pretty dumb and always relied on me and other people who looked up the price. So whenever he wanted to trade with me or someone else, I would always volunteer to look up the price, and I would always add like 25% to the other side trades. I did this for like 2 years until a few months before I moved to college. He wanted to sell his cars to a store, and I learned that over time, he had slowly traded his valuable collection away to the value of pretty much a bunch of cardboard. I laughed so hard when I saw this. I let him know that I had sold about 90% of my own collection online for a bit over $4 grand, and then told him what I did, and never talked to him or went back to that store again. Wow, nice, quick and sweet. I like that little revenge, just subtly over time scamming him, not knowing that he's like losing money over and over. Never be a scammer. People aren't as dumb as you think they are, except for me when I was doing that where I thought I was gonna get $5,000, but this is not about that. But man, that sucks. I like buy and sell Pokemon cards a lot too. Actually, I just passed the $1,000 threshold on Mercari for selling Pokemon cards. I can't say I probably wouldn't do the same thing if that happened to me. I do not feel bad for that guy at all. I ruined the life of a man who molested me for 3 years. This is a throwaway account simply due to the fact that I have friends who know my account name and are unaware of the current issues in my personal life. I would also like to apologize if I am all over the place with my storytelling. I am not very good at this, and there's a lot to put in one post. I understand that this is not a light subject matter, and I would like to consider that it's my official trigger warning for any survivors of sexual assault/abuse. Part of the reason I'm writing this post is a form of therapy and a chance to feel more in control of my life than I currently am, so bear with me. In order to understand the reasoning behind the revenge, I need to start at the beginning. I was born into a family of very well off. I had a great childhood with 5 siblings, and I was practically a trust fund baby. This was up until around 8 years old, when my parents divorced for a number of reasons, which I will not get into. Long story short, my dad left my mother on her own to take care of 6 kids all on her own, ranging from 6 years old to a 19-year-old. She was of course vulnerable at this time in her life, and in need of someone to help her out. Anyone would have felt the same in her position. So in walks this guy, let's call him Satan. Satan was an amazing person at first. He was a strong parental role and didn't mind the duty of 6 children along with a huge house to live in. Seeing as how he was only a waiter at a restaurant, he was glad to feel like the boss somewhere. My mom relied on him a lot during the first few months of the relationship, which led to her trusting him a bit too much and opening of my family up to problems. Satan is what most consider completely freaking insane. Each week he was convinced of some new conspiracy theory and always dragged my family into it. He was a doomsday prepper and made my family and I stockpile food months ahead of time, along with things like training us on how to quickly load and unload guns when I was only 9 years old. Now while my older sibling could see clear as day that Satan was insane, my mother and other siblings close to my age completely trusted him. The 2 older siblings were even kicked out before graduation and ended up not speaking with my mother for years. I can't really blame them, but I wouldn't blame my mother either, seeing as how mentally manipulative Satan could be. We all felt as though he was a lifeline to us, and without him, we would die. Because my parents divorced, my mother was left to sell a mansion of a house, which during 2010 or so obviously didn't go over well. We were struggling financially, big time. Satan had my siblings and mother convinced that he was our only financial support and that leaving him would result in being on the street, because he had to cut off the rest of our family from speaking to us, because they saw how insane he was. We all believed it. Now I won't get in too much detail about my abuse at this moment, but I'll let you know that Satan began molesting me just a few months after I had turned 10 years old. There is no easy way to put this, but I was terrified. All I knew was that what was happening was wrong and that me saying something meant I would be homeless. I thought I was protecting both myself and my family, so I let it continue. And for any victim blaming a-holes out there who might come after a 10-year-old girl, anytime I didn't comply, I was forced into what was basically solitary confinement. I would sit and stare at a blank wall for days on end with only peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to eat and water to drink. CPS was called once, but the investigation was unrelated to this and didn't go very far. My mother was told I was being grounded for other reasons and even thought I might be being molested, but I went as far as denying it in fear of what could happen to us. My siblings and I switched schools way too often for me to make any real friends, and during the final years of my abuse, we had moved out of state. I never had a phone or any way of contacting anyone to help me out with my situation. I was alone and nobody knew. My life was a living HE double hockey sticks. The sexual abuse continued for 3 years until my mother finally gathered the courage and hid enough money to escape. This would seem simple enough, but it wasn't a clean cut. In 2011, my mother had given birth to my baby sister and his daughter. We will call her Angel. The first day was spent moving into a house that my aunt and mother had reconnected with, and terrifyingly enough, within 24 hours, we moved back in with Satan. This is just an example of how insane the entire situation was. And though it was slow going at first, eventually we officially split from him and moved far away. But because my baby sister was there, despite us leaving Satan, he would always be around. Now though Angel was the daughter of Satan himself, I loved her and still love her to this day more than anyone or anything, and have always been torn for this reason. I understand my selfishness and staying quiet, but I had my reasons. From wanting her to have a normal life, to her being his own bloodline while I was not. I came up with a million excuses, but the gist of it was I was scared. I had no evidence, and I didn't want her to hate me for being the reason she didn't have a dad. Satan went on to be a trucker and now has a girlfriend of about 5 years. Because of this, he only has the opportunity to see Angel a few times a year for less than 24 hours at a time. And when he does see Angel, always in his truck, within feet of his girlfriend, or out in public. I use this as justification for not saying anything to anyone as well. And I do not need to be told how selfish it was to put her at risk, because I understand and I have suffered the guilt in all these years. This is where the revenge part comes in. Thank you for being patient. Angel is now 8. I'm 19 and Satan is 50. Angel understands how insane her dad is, but loves him nonetheless. And up until this point, he has stayed far away from my family. Angel and I are as close as two people can be. Angel confided in me a few weeks ago that her dad wanted to take her for a week or two down to Florida, hundreds of miles away. This was a no-go. I was scared of what would happen, but I knew that taking this risk would make me worse than him. It took a lot of courage, but I knew it had to be done. So I went to my mom that night and told her what happened all those years ago. It went about as well as I expected, and after about 12 hours of crying, her and I went to protection mode. My mother and Satan have never had custody disagreements, and have always been on good terms for Angel's sake, despite his mentally abusive tendency. Despite this, she had stockpiled years of text and recording in case she passed, and he had attempted to gain full custody of Angel. She spoke with her attorney, and within a few days, we went down to the sheriff's office of the counties where the sexual assault occurred. Now yes, I did type counties because if you remember earlier, I said that we had moved during the time that the sexual abuse was occurring. This meant that I could file in multiple counties, making the case stronger. While one county was a case of sexual assault of a minor, the other was a rape case due to the nature of the molestation. As well as this, due to the age I was during the molestation and its severity, it is not being disregarded. We asked that the detectives from each county wait for a week or so in order for my mothers and I to serve protection restraining order against Satan, and they agreed. This protects me and my mother and anyone in our household from him, from the moment he is served and before he is even aware that we have filed against him. Along with the fact that there are no custody disagreements over Angel for Satan to claim my accusations were fake, my mother and I were able to reach out to the other girls we suspected of being victims of him as well. Now there's a second girl willing to testify. I just finished my affidavit and have given my written statement about everything that has ever been done to me, which over the course of 3 years was a lot considering it was a daily occurrence. I came here to feel better knowing that at the very least, he would not be allowed to see Angel again without supervision. And this is even if the case does not go as planned due to the text/recording show his insanity. Though my hope is that he will go to jail for a long time, this is the least I can ask for and will take what I can get for her safety. The only worry there is that he could become a martyr. He will be served within the next few days, and knowing him and his paranoia, he won't see this because he's afraid of the internet. Angel will be seeing my family therapist, whose job is to make sure she was never hurt while not putting ideas into her mind. I feel proud myself because in spite of everything that happened, he's a truck driver with a miserable life that's about to get worse. On the other hand, I graduated in top 5% of my class and am now an engineering student, currently debt-free due to scholarships and my savings, with a close group of friends and a boyfriend of 2.5 years. My family has since reconnected with everything in his life that he damaged is now better in the lack of his presence. My half-sister loves me more than she ever will love him. As far as I see it, I have won. He has lost. Just a disclaimer, please don't tell me what a horrible sister I am. Anything you say, I have already told myself over the years. I don't know what else to say, but that I wish I knew earlier that everything could turn out okay. TLDR, I have finally served the man who molested me for 3 years and have destroyed what's left of his pathetic life. Oh man, that story was a doozy. Honestly, that's probably the saddest story I have read out loud in any of these posts. That's really sad to read. The top comment said, "This is the bravest yet most heartbreaking post I've read so far. My thoughts are with you. Best of luck for the future, OP." Yeah, that kind of hurts to read. Like, it sucks that happened to her for so many years, but it's good that she's finally, stepping up so that her half-sister won't have to be molested like she was. When she was a kid, she felt like she was doing the right thing by saving her family from not living on the streets. But while doing that was being just totally abused into the ground and used up, which sucks for her case, but she says the little girl does have therapy and hopefully she does too. Just so I don't leave you guys on the saddest story in history and just run out of here, let's read one more short story that's not as depressing. Chef leaves all his notes, almost kills the business. At the restaurant I used to work at, there was a chef who made the best gumbo I have ever had. However, the management where I worked was awful. The only employees who stayed for very long were the ones who were paid well, e.g. Mr. Gumbo. Customers knew him by name. The only day he called in sick, which he had never done before, and they didn't let him. He had enough and quit. But he also burned a few bridges. He took all his notes, which had ratios, spices, times and temperatures, everything. We had no idea how to make his gumbo. They tasked me with recreating it. When it was nowhere near as good, most of the gumbo customers, which was a lot of them, left. I quit shortly after. From what I heard from my friends who still worked there, the business almost went under. This was his way of making the management pay. Sorry for spelling and formatting. Edit to start, we aren't in the South. This was a smaller place, but it was still good size. The menu wasn't that big, so the gumbo was very important. The chef did have every right to leave, but by doing so, the business lost most of its valuable assets. That is how the Gumbo Man got back into management. Good job, Gumbo Man. I feel you so hard on that. That reminds me so much of Walmart. Like, you have 5 days out of the year. If you're sick, to stay home. If you're late, if you call in and you can't come to work today, anything, if you get in trouble, everything counts as 1 point. If you get 5 points, you're out. You automatically fired. So if you're sick 5 days in a row, you're automatically fired. I can't tell you how many days I had to go in just deathly sick, throwing up in the bathroom, and the only way that it doesn't count as a point is if they send you home. So I would just be, so sick and throwing up, and then they would send you home. It's a shame that you have to do that in some places. Golden boys of my hometown get taken down? Trigger warning. Okie dokie. So for part of high school, I lived in a super duper ultra small town in California. If you're familiar with the area, just saying, 5 by 8 Mile Island, where peanut butter was invented, to tell you exactly the town. Since it's super small though, I'll abstain. I'd lived in a bunch of other places, from big cities to tiny villages and third world countries. By the time I started my junior year in this town, also the story takes place about 13 to 14 years ago, so my memory might be a teasy bit foggy. I've got the important stuff though. My point is, I was a bit more cultured than the average of my class, and not known as a poop taker. On this island there was these 3 guys called Nick. That's not their real name, it's just another generic name that all 3 of them happened to share. They weren't particularly good students, they were on the lower end of the economic spectrum, but their parents had been on the island forever. All of them were super fun M&M types, without any talent. All 3 were notorious for hooking up with girls without consent. All 3 were well known for being abusive to the women they dated. To differentiate, I'll say that Fat Nick, Boof Nick, and My Nick. Because yeah, I was one of the lucky girls who dated a Nick. Fat Nick was dating a good friend of mine. He beat her, he cheated on her, roofied her, and then assaulted her. At one point, his abuse was so bad she developed an eating disorder and ended up in rehab and almost dying. Boof Nick dated another good friend. He eventually ended up in jail for other reasons, but he had got hit by our revenge too. We called him Boof because that was his way into drugs I'd never heard of, and frankly, still don't entirely understand. He used to beat up on my friend. He tried to force himself on her. Thankfully, she's a giant and fending him off, but he was the reason she didn't date until her 30s. My Nick was, oh boy, started off okay, but he broke my nose and then sodomized me when I was 16. I admit I didn't believe my friends when they tried to warn me. It wasn't until it happened to me that after I lost my poop. After that happened, initially, I was broken. I mean, coming back from that is harsh. I tried to kill myself twice. Got pretty close, we stayed dating. I just couldn't leave. I tried about 9 times. To this day, if I'm walking down the street and I hear a loud clicking sound, I go into full panic mode, and my husband has to take me somewhere else. Every time I broke things off with him, he'd find me. I didn't have a car, so he'd drive by where I was walking and yell at me to get in. Unlike my friends, my beautiful, wonderful, wholesome, innocent friends, I have an attitude. My pride will kill me one day. No matter how terrified I felt, I never got in the car. Still, we'd get back together. It took about 2 years before the revenge actually happened. By then, all 3 of us girlies were about to be safely on our way to other cities and states for college. The friend who I dated, Boof, had pictures, but the police said it had been too long for any of that to matter. The friend who dated Fat Nick was the kicker. Boof and mine might have taken drugs, but Fatty was the dealer. We planned a party at Fat's house. My buddy had reached back out to her ex and reconciled, and it was her birthday. What better way to celebrate rekindling the romance? Boof and his now ex weren't on speaking terms, so she came with me and my Nick. At this point, we were all 18 at least. Not able to drink, that's for sure. Fat's girl and I put the moves on our respective men. Boof was doing Boof things and pawing stupidly at a freshman in the corner. We got them all very drunk, and then we started with the, "Babe, I've never tried this. will you try it with me? For E, which was called Thiz. Boof was somewhere else. Fat and Mai took some. Thinking they were going to get us high and sneak us off into another room, another friend actually overheard them talking about swapping with each other once they were too high to notice. But because they were so full of themselves, they never thought that we didn't actually take anything. We just acted like we did. About 20 or so minutes later, we gave them the whole, we're gonna go freshen up. We'll meet you in the bedroom deal. Peeps have read it. The reason that's so common in every dumb high school movie is because teenagers are idiots, and it works. Over and over, always. I don't know how I dated someone that dumb for that long. Whatever. We slid into the bathroom of Boof's ex and then crawled out the window. We then called the police. One of us complained about the noise. One of us mentioned children drinking, and I told them someone had a gun and they were threatening people. That was true actually. Fatty had his dad's gun whenever his girlfriend didn't want to make out. He would take it out, stuff it in her mouth, take the safety off, and then he'd laugh when she started crying. I cannot stress enough what freaking monstrous trash these boys were. The police came. We were down the block when they did. Fat's parents bailed him out, but he lost his scholarship at Chico State and ended up going to the local JC. Boof was in jail, not prison, for 4 months. He was then released on parole, which he violated. My neck was found jerking off in a bedroom with his pants around his ankles, looking like a moron he is when the police actually got there. His brother knew the police, so he was out pretty fast. I wasn't done with him though. He was pretty mad that I left him at the party. I was just a little bit more angry than he was though. I'll wrap up the other two boys before I get into that. Fatty's lady is married with 2 kids now. The guy is really awesome. Fatty himself died 7 years after this went down from, I believe, heart murmur. My friend that dated Boof went to an art school and she makes super cute costume cosplays that she sells on Etsy. Seems to be doing great by her IG post. Boof, oh man, he took to the local bars pretty heavily. At one point, he was at a bar talking to some old gay man. Apparently, Poof didn't realize the man was gay until he was hitting on him. The old man invited Boof to his apartment after the bar closed. From what I heard, he attempted to initiate something with Boof. Drunkenly, Boof beat the guy to death. That happened 4 years after the fact. He had gotten out at one point, then did something with arson charges. He's been in prison since. My neck, his revenge didn't see any massive nuclear things. His brother got him out of jail. His brother was a thug type who bred blue-nosed pit bulls for fighting, but he wanted better for his baby brother. He genuinely thought that I would be the one to get his brother out of that town and set him straight. Because he thought his brother was doing so well, he was being financially supported, and Big Brother was understandably worried about when he discovered we'd broke up for good because I was leaving for college. Big Brother arranged a meetup for me to beg on his brother's behalf. From there, I showed him countless pictures of every time Nick touched me in an unkind way. Cops might not have cared, but Big Brother knew I was a sweet girl. The cops might not have cared, but Big Brother knew I was a sweet girl, and he knew Nick could get bad when he was high. I also had videos on my phone of Nick drinking, underage, getting high, and throwing cash that his brother gave him on the tables for gambling and then losing, then calling his brother for more with some sob story about how he was mugged or left his wallet somewhere. Always some BS. Big Brother always believed it. Right up until he saw proof. He cut Nick off after that. Nick showed up at my dorm 2 cities over a few months later with flowers and jewelry, saying he knew he messed up and I was the one. My RA came out with me and pretended to be my boyfriend. Nick started calling me a whore and making a big scene in the courtyard. Police were called again. These actually seemed to give a dang. They took him away. I didn't hear from him again after I left the state. Kept tabs on him for a while just to make sure he was still miserable. He got a job with the city, working with kids at a local park. My mom was ready with the complaint about seeing him openly carry around 6 years old. He lost his job with no idea as to who did it. He started dating a literal hooker and renting her out to his friends for cash. He's still in that town, slowly getting gentrified into homelessness. Still with that girl, still thinks he's going to be a rapper. Generally seems like he's just bidding time until he dies. He's got a record, thanks to me. No one in that town wants to hire him. Only a matter of time. I'm okay with this. Jeez, those boys live a terrible life and sad and just everything. That is horrible. They got their just desserts though for being terrible as teenagers though. Let's read one more r/ProRevenge story. We'll never see each other again. Think again. I was bullied relentlessly from 3rd to 7th grade by multiple people in class or upper grades. After I graduated to 8th grade, I received a Facebook message from Andy. A boy had been bullying me and harassing me from the very beginning of it all. I would post the exact message, but it was extremely vulgar and long. He ended it by saying that since he would never see each other again, he could put it all out in the open about how much of an idiotic, ugly, and loser I was. Of course, he used a more colorful dictionary with those words, but you get the idea. However, there was one problem. My parents owned a large wood chipper, and his father owned a tree cutting business and would often rent from them for much larger jobs. During the summer, I noticed him walk and talk to my uncle. Then I realized a golden opportunity I had been given. I loaded Facebook on my laptop to bring up the message. I then approached his dad and tell him, "Your son sent this message a few days after graduating, and I think it's really important you read it. He raised an eyebrow first, but took a look at my laptop. As he read, I could visibly see his face turn blood red and his hand shook as he gripped the sides of my laptop harder and harder. I think he reread the entire thing over again just to make sure what he was reading. He even clicked the profile to make sure it had indeed been his own son who sent it. Finally, he gave me my computer back and told me he was so sorry for his son's behavior and language, and that he would most certainly be dealing with Andy the moment he got home. It took me 2 months to hear back about the fallout. Andy's older and way nicer brother, Grant, was friends with my sister, who told her, and then she told me. Andy was grounded for the entire summer, fall, and winter break. His parents canceled his trip and was going to take him to the beach with their student youth group at church, canceled his summer camp trip, going to hold him back from getting his driving permit for a full year, took away all his games and computer. Instead of going with his dad and brother on their hunting trips, he would be sent to his grandparents' house to help clean. His social media passwords were changed so he didn't have access to them, deleted his Xbox account, and Andy would have to work for his dad during this tree cutting the entire summer and winter holiday. There were more punishments, but I honestly cannot recall them. I ruined his life for a good 2 to 3 years and destroyed his relationship he had with his father and mother. Probably not forever, but they certainly no longer saw them as a well-behaved youngest child. It was so satisfying. Geez, that kid has some deep-rooted hate in him to be sending messages like that. That was an extreme punishment, but he got what he deserved. The top comment says, so when I read Owned a Wood Chipper, I was terrified the story was going in a totally different direction. Me too. Shady former colleagues bullied me into quitting a small town teaching job, so I had their entire school shut down. Long time lurker, first time poster. Throwaway, of course, and I apologize for the long story. This happened a few years ago, but it was recent enough that one of those deservedly affected by the fallout might still be looking for me and might recognize the events I'm going to describe. So of course, names, locations, and other details will have slight alterations. Think of it like transforming a left Ked slip-on to a right Louis Vuitton stiletto. Different enough, but still a shoe. And it fits. I've always been a shy person, and I grew up in a large urban area. In high school, I had friends, but we were the nerdy type and thought of as losers. I was one of the 2 girls of our core friend group of 4 kids. Of course, we eventually dated the guys in our group. The youngest in our group was one of the boys, Doug, in 9th grade, and the oldest was a boy, Clayton, in 11th. The other girl, Sarah, and I were in 10th. I dated Doug all through high school, for which I was relentlessly teased by people outside of our group because he was a bit more than a year younger than me. Sarah and Clayton married in college and are still happily married 5 years later. Doug and I, for our part, got married once he finished college, and we've been married almost 4 years. We have a 1-year-old daughter, Raquel. Both Doug and Clayton eventually got careers in IT. Sarah and Clayton have their own 1-year-old daughter, Amber. Sarah has a small but thriving home business selling refurbished furniture on eBay that she and Clayton find on the weekends. The reason I give so much backstory is that our friend group is pretty isolated. Chalk it up to years of bullying, being made fun of, excluded, you name it. It happened to all 4 of us in school. Even in primary and middle school. Even now, in my later 20s, I don't really have close friends besides Sarah, Clayton, and of course my husband Doug, who is my best friend. This is true, even though we moved all the way to the Midwest for Doug's career, we're still close enough and well off enough so we can regularly fly out and see our friends and vice versa. Doug makes more than enough money to support all 3 of us on his salary alone, especially in our state, and always says it's okay if I'm a stay-at-home mom. However, in this new environment, I thought I might have a fresh start to work on being more outgoing, as it were. No one in my new town knew me from when I was a kid and a total reject. Doug's father passed away, and so his mother lives with us and has generously helped take care of Raquel. We all talked it over and agreed I could go back to college to get a teaching certification for my bachelor's degree, math. Fast forward just a few months, and thanks to an accelerated program and shortage of math teachers in my area, I got my teaching license quite quickly and easily. I also made a few new girlfriends in the teaching program, which helped my self-esteem. So I put up my resume, and within just a few short weeks, I get hired at an independent studies charter school. I was looking to get hired at a regular high school, but whatever. It was a credit recovery school. Basically, the idea of the kids who washed out their regular school district or couldn't succeed there for whatever reason could try to succeed in our setting. We hosted grades 9 through 12. Students would make appointments and come in on their own time, meet independently with teachers, be given assignments and projects, and basically earn a legit high school diploma eventually. I knew it was kind of weird to go back to a place, high school, where I never fit in, but I thought it would be totally different from the perspective of an adult. The school was one large classroom, like the size of a basketball court, with administrative offices, science labs, even an exercise room for PE, all around the perimeter. About 50 student desks were lined around the center of the room in rows, and around these desks were about a dozen teachers. Generally, we'd have 2 teachers per subject area, i.e., 2 English, 2 math, 2 history, etc. And we each had our own roster of students and ensured that they visited all the teachers for whose subject they owed credits. Although the school officially had over 200 students on the various rosters, there were really more than 10 or so students in school at any one time, due to different appointments throughout the day. That meant that there was tons of downtime where the teachers would just shoot the breeze with one another. The school had a female principal, a male vice principal, and a male counselor. The other math teacher was a male, both English teachers were female, both science teachers were male, the PE teacher was a male, the art teacher was female, the history teachers were 1 male and 1 female. There was also a male computer teacher and a female music teacher, both whom came in once a week. I could see right away from day 1 that all the teachers were good friends with one another. That's not a bad thing at all. Lunch is at noon every day and the school shuts down for a whole hour. Typically, the other teachers would all go out to lunch with one another, or break off in 2s and 3s. I didn't really know anyone, so I didn't take offense to anyone not inviting me to go to lunch with them. I thought, well, maybe give it a few weeks and it will change. I had that old feeling from when I was a kid of being rejected. Still, I was a new person, so I tried not to take it too personally. Besides, forming relationships, colleagues included, is a two-way street and I could reach out too. Till then, I was at the lunch desk. Sometimes I'd FaceTime hubby, who usually had lunch at that time too, but I was proud of him for making friends at his own work and tried to minimize taking up his time. I didn't really focus on that too much though, and just did my job. Students tended to like me after just a few weeks. It became noticeable that my students made more appointments to see me than other teachers. Every time a student would finish a project or an assignment for a teacher, whatever the subject, they would turn it into their main teacher, the one who had the student on their roster. It soon became clear that the students on my roster were finishing their assignments and graduating at a faster rate than my peers. I didn't plan for this to happen, it just turned out that way. Over time, holidays would pass and our school would have mandated social and team building functions, i.e. potluck in the break room, etc. It seems like I was making progress socially. I was always positive and nice to my peers and would be myself around them, try to tell them about me and learn about them. They were being nice to me too, at least to my face, so I thought I was finally fitting in. One day, however, the principal called me into their office to tell me someone had told her that I was smug and antisocial, and that it wasn't good for the school environment for teachers to bully one another. I was flabbergasted, and of course my initial reaction was to ask who told her this, but the principal said it was confidential and to just work on being nicer. I didn't want to seem intransigent or defiant, so I apologized for hurting anyone's feelings, but I also pointed out that I was trying my very best to fit in, and I had been working on the shortest compared to everyone else, so of course I didn't want to overstep. I also pointed out that students on my roster were graduating at a good pace. I didn't throw shade at anyone of my colleagues. My principal agreed with me on this and praised me heartily. The vice principal happened to be walking by and he overheard the principal praising me. He too threw in a comment that I was an exemplary teacher. The students were praising me in a private room to him, and the school had big plans for me, especially since we were on pace to outperform another independent studies charter school and a few miles away, which competed the same state function. This pleased me, of course, and took the edge off the butthurt of people telling the principal I was not nice. A small, maybe big, red flag was that they told me that students graduating meant massive funding for our school. Money which the regular district didn't want the charter schools to have. And if all the teachers could get more students to turn in work, we might get bonuses. I mean, all that is good, but both of them spoke about students graduation only in terms of how it could benefit our own pocketbooks. Ever since I started working at the school, what had originally been 5 students, 10 at the most working in the classroom at a time, became 20 or more. Almost every one of them a kid on my roster. Every day hanging out for hours and hours doing their work in our quiet classroom environment. I thought this was great because this meant they could graduate sooner and get on with their lives. Gradually, however, I noticed that some of my peers looked resentful when the classroom was so full. I strongly suspect this is because they had been growing accustomed to having long stretches of time simply mess about online at their desks, playing with their smartphones and gossiping. Our school had a policy that unless you were on break, you had to be at your desk and make yourselves available to grade student work in your subject area. They didn't like grading my students' work because eventually credit for that student graduating would go to me, their main teacher. I certainly didn't mind grading work from students who were on other teachers' rosters. That's the whole point of our job. Gradually, I came to realize that the school didn't focus so much on actually teaching the students anything and making sure that their diploma actually meant something than just rubber stamping their work and saying it was satisfactory, using the fact that we were licensed, credentialed, professional as official backup. Really, any reasonable, intelligent adult or even kid, could do the type of work that some of my colleagues were actually doing. What happened was, say, a kid on my roster is behind 5 credits in English if he wants to graduate. I would then send him to the English teacher to request a packet of English work. Kid would do the work, give it to the English teacher to grade. She would sign off on it, I would input the grade in my computer, and the kid would be 1 credit closer to graduation. It soon became clear to me that the teachers weren't even actually looking at the package before giving them a grade, really just pulling grades out of their butts. I would never dream of doing that on any of my students' math work. That's the way they'd grade for me, but they do it in a slow way as to reduce the speed of students graduating from my roster. As in, they'd let piles of my students' work sit on their desk ungraded while playing Clash of Clans at their desk. I never said anything, and I was always polite and friendly to them, even though I knew at least one of them had badmouthed me to the principal. Needless to say, even months into my new job, I wasn't making friends with my coworkers. I was nice to them, and it seemed at face value that they'd at least respect me on a professional level, at least to my face, so I'd accept that for the time being. The switch came when the principal actually singled me out at a staff meeting as an exemplary teacher. She said that I had come from big city and have succeeded to an amazing degree, and that I had set the record for how many students were graduating high school on my roster. From that point on, I sensed that people were being cold to me. It felt like a high school, except unlike high school, where they would openly mock me as a tall, skinny, no butt, no boobs having giraffe, adults said it in colder ways. On rare occasions, where the whole classroom was empty, or if I'd run into groups with them in the break room, they would talk about all these fun things that they were going to do together after work. Or even talk about the big party they were all going to have at such and such venue, and how everyone's invited, except, obviously. Well, I didn't mind actually. I wasn't going to let them being petty ruin my good feeling I had from helping students and feeling like I was making a difference. I was still very nice to everyone and kept up my positive attitude. Inside I felt so bad and so left out. However, I didn't tell my husband about basically being shunned at work, and instead I focused on just my success and getting students to graduate. Anyway, some of my students would actually quietly complain to me that Miss So-and-so doesn't even grade our work. I never badmouthed my co-workers, especially to the kid. It's important to have a united front, of course, but on the sly, I'd separate those work packets that were clearly not graded properly and look them over myself as best I could. Although I was only licensed to teach math, if, say, a history packet seemed incomplete and yet had a B+, nice work on the cover of it, I'd sort of quietly, as diplomatically as I could, staple a new cover sheet to it, ask the student to finish it for real, and submit it again to the teacher. I'd make sure the student asked the teacher to grade it in front of him or her, as he or she was eager to see the results of all their hard work. Although the teachers hated it when my kids did this, I did make sure my students' work was legitimately graded as possible. Somewhat surprisingly, students appreciated my determination that they didn't BS their way through what was obviously a BS school. When it came to other teachers' students coming to me with math packets, I did the professional thing and actually went over the packets and gave the tests and quizzes as prescribed in the employee handbook for our schools and as mandated by our state. The other teachers didn't like this. I guess because they were used to teachers just rubber stamping the work and passing, regardless of whether or not it was completely done. Invariably, teachers prefer to send their math kits to the other teacher because he had no problem just breezing through the packets as if they were flip books and assign whatever grade he dreamed of. However, even though for him to just scribble C+, please show your work for each question, on packet covers took no time at all, and he could go back to searching up dating profiles on OkCupid. I found out eventually he was already married. He resented the fact that he graded perhaps maybe 20 math packets in one day, whereas I graded maybe 5 because I graded them and assigned the test and everything, which of course took time. Eventually, other teachers began to grumble too, how it was taking too long to grade their kids' packets and thus slowing down their students' graduation, whereas mine was graduating relatively faster. I began to hear rumors that kids only came to see me, especially the boys, because they wanted to screw me. Naturally, the rumors eventually spread that I was banging the kids. Other rumors spread that I was unqualified to be a math teacher. What was a woman doing being a math teacher anyway? I was just trying to hook up with young studs, all sorts of nonsense. Still, more rumors spread that I was cheating with my graduation rates and that it was all fraud somehow. My husband Doug had actually come to see me on a couple of occasions at the school to go with me to my doctor's appointment, so the staff knew what he looked like. One day I had a phone on my desk when Clayton called to tell me the news that Sarah was coming to visit next month. Unfortunately, my reputation at the school, Clayton's contract avatar showed up hugely on my phone screen when he called in the middle of the day, and one of my busybody coworkers happened to be walking by my desk, saw my phone, and made a face barely concealed contempt. Needless to say, rumors soon spread that I was cheating on Doug with some other young man, along with the high schoolers who I supposedly worked with off the clock. Still, I tried to grind it out. but I would plan my revenge too, if it came to that. I'm mature, but I'm not above getting even. I went through 12 years of junk growing up. I'll be danged if I resign myself to a lifetime of junk as a grown-up. I flatter myself that I was at least sort of cool in college. First thing I did was let my principal know what was going on. My plan was, if she addressed the bullying at the future meeting and put an end to it, then hey, I wouldn't even need to get revenge. I'd just go back to doing my job, minding my own business. I was kind of hoping the principal would back me up, as up until now, aside from the red flag being obsessed with the school getting money and not with students learning anything, she seemed friendly enough, if a bit detached from her school's day-to-day operations. I told her that students would tell me quietly that Mr. So-and-so or Miss What's-Her-Name told him that I was dating a student or cheating on my husband. More than one kid would tell me these kinds of things. I knew the kids weren't trolling me, as over the months I'd established a good rapport with all of them. Principal basically gaslights me and tells me I'm being paranoid. It's a high school, she says. In high schools there's rumors. It's part of the territory. Yeah, I reply. But the rumors are usually from the students, not adults. She doesn't really address this, other than to tell me that I need to grow up and not let petty things like supposed rumors get to me. She tells me to be the bigger person. Nah. I should have mentioned that I had brought my cell phone in with me and had been recording the principal's responses to what I had been saying, which was good for the case I was building. Because as if on cue, the vice principal comes walking by once again, world's greatest Chad, coffee mug in hand. Oh hey Mr. Vice Principal dude, come on in really quick. I thought principal was going to tell him about my concerns about the rumors that I basically both an adulterer and also trying to go to jail for illicit fun with minors. But no, instead, principal and vice principal complained to me that I'm being too thorough in my grading of math work from students on other teachers' rosters. I explained that I'm trying to do my job according to the employee handbook they themselves given me, and according to the 2-day training seminar standard for all teachers of independent study schools where I live, they had mandated I attend prior to my first day of employment. They tell me I need to play ball, and that our task was to get these kids out the door with a diploma in hand. I counter with, what good is a diploma if they don't actually know any history, or how to read, or how to use the scientific method, or whatever. Principal actually calls me pretentious wannabe female Jamie Escalante, a famous calculus teacher. They both strongly encourage me to use my professional judgment, i.e. place my teaching license in jeopardy by assigning passing marks to work that is clearly not passing. I get all of this on record, and I make sure to email a backup copy of the MP3 to my outside email address. Our school plays a slick when it comes to the school board inspecting our paperwork. Whenever the principal knows the state is coming for our inspection of our packets, an audit they like to call it, they have each of us take extra special care to grade about 3 or 4 packets in the subject area very thoroughly. These packets were placed in a file cabinet in the middle of the classroom, as to imply they represent our average work. All other packets with BS grades on them go into the other file cabinets in the back that the school never invites the inspectors to look at. We tend to empty out students' folders into these file cabinets after they graduate. The school had a policy that once a packet was 3 months old, they only had to retain the cover with the teacher grades and comments to save cabinet space, thereby destroying evidence that actual packet behind the cover was never actually done properly. The phony cabinet in the middle of the classroom represents active work. The only sort of friends I made at the school was the music teacher and computer teacher, who taught small labs only once a week, and both whom had other full-time jobs and were married, not to each other, and had families. The music teacher taught at a local community college and did the charter schools as a side hustle, and the computer guy consulted and made 6 figures. I, therefore, didn't feel too much guilt about what I was going to do. Still, I quietly hinted at my plan to both of them on the day they came to campus, and both were like, do it. After getting the principal and vice principal and the counselor too, who just so happened to be walking by, all encouraged me to basically commit academic fraud. I thought, F them. I also suspected and later confirmed they had a secret buzzer system to so repetitively call one another from their desks, which is why they always happen to be available at the same time when necessary or convenient. I snuck toward the filing area where all the BS students' work credits were stored, and day by day, over a period of 3 months, took video of hundreds of package covers, all of them labeled with academic grades, teacher comments, and teacher signatures. I, of course, also continued the videos to show page after page of blank work and incomplete work, non-essential work. English packets especially were rife in ridiculous gibberish, sometimes even mocking teachers like, Miss English teacher is a booty hole, and she doesn't even grade our work, lol. And the cover would have Miss English teacher's lady signature along with the A+, fantastic. You are such a talented writer. Sure enough, after 3 months, secretary, who was also kind of snooty and played on her smartphone and uploaded selfies to Instagram all day even though she was like 55. Shredded mountains of bogus work and filed only 3 covers. Shredded mountains of bogus work and filed only covers. Throughout this whole time, I had been slyly walking about the classroom in such a way that other teachers would think I wasn't trying to look at them or what was on their computer, and I'd catch a video of them on Facebook or Plenty of Fish or shopping on eBay, and they have a student interviewing right in front of them. What the actual F? At home one day, I asked Doug how to do a remote microphone that I could control from far away. He's like, "What for? Are you trying to be James Bond?" But he's so smart and it's like child's play for him. So he personally rigs up one for me at work. Basically, it's like a wireless mic that isn't a detectable Bluetooth, and he sets up a way for me to turn it on and off from far away. I'm like, that's awesome. Can I have 10? He smiles, but he asks no questions because he's awesome like that. Next day, he has a dozen of them. I want it so there's no way devices appear when other teachers turn on their Bluetooth earpieces. I'm always the first at work because my coworkers tend to be irresponsible jerkholes. So even though everyone is supposed to be there at their desk by 8 AM, most of them drift in by 8:10, 8:20, and so on. I'm there at 7:30 just in case. I know the code how to get in keyless entry side door, let myself in, and slip a mic beneath everyone's desk. Each mic has a mini watch battery that is supposed to last quite a long time. I'll bring my own smartphone that I don't use anymore and make sure it was a huge capacity SD card that my husband got for me installed. I connected it as a wireless audio input for the mics. I then hit record, and every day for 2 weeks I hear the teachers, most of whom were wearing Bluetooth headsets. Ever since it became cool to yell gossip across the room, talking trash all day long. Totally unrelated to the work, saying the most inappropriate things about other teachers, the principal, even the kids. Some of these things these middle-aged women would say about what they would love to do with that young blonde god over there made me want to puke. Of course, these teachers were too stupid to simply text one another if they really want to sneak around and talk trash. To them, the Bluetooth thing was easier. It stung, but I knew I struck gold when I heard them spreading false rumors about me. Calling me a FNB, a pretentious big city loser with no friends. They definitely get me fired. They'd also talk about how they didn't grade and just pretend to, and that they were so glad they could just sit all day instead of teach the district. How it was a cushy job, how they were tricking the state inspectors during audits. Every day during my lonely lunches, when they all went off into, I don't know, Applebee's, I loaded up the previous day's MP3s into my real phone and edited out the dead air and keep all the good stuff. I then emailed these separate dated files to my outside email address. This whole time, I continued to grade normal. This whole time, I continued to grade as normal and take my time doing the job correctly. I knew I was going to pull the trigger soon anyway, but the last straw came when the latest student finished her last credit, coincidentally, a math one that I graded thoroughly, and now had enough credits to graduate. Every time a student graduates, we're supposed to blow party horns and give them a little congratulations trophy, and they'd get their diploma in the mail in a week or two later. Students had the option of attending a school-wide formal graduation at the end of the school year in June if they had graduated anytime during that year from September onward. Most tended, however, to go right into the workforce or the local junior college or state school. So I blow this little party horn for this girl, and everyone in the classroom, students and teachers, clap enthusiastically. The girl's mom and dad and little brother came to that day to the classroom, and instead of having a photo with me, they all gave me a big hug. Later, I reviewed the audio recordings that day, and when the girl graduated, other teachers were saying I had switched teams and that I was into eating rug. They also said a lot of really mean things about her and her family, and a lot of totally racist. This family was Hispanic. All the teachers and admin, including me, are white. It just so happened that both the music teacher and the computer guy were on the campus that day. So, in true half-baked fashion, at the end of the day, when the classroom was empty of students and teachers had the last 5 minutes to close down their computers, I walked from teacher to teacher, purse and other small belongings in hand, saying F you, F you, F you. Past the computer guy, you're cool. Passed by the music lady, you're cool. F you, F you, F you. I walk into the principal's office while the other teachers are still in shock. She's at her desk, and I know where her little buzzer button is beneath the desk. The computer guy told me about it because he was the one who installed it. I said, I'm quitting. I don't want to be a part of your criminal school. And just in case that buzzer was just a buzzer and not also a speaker, I pressed the PA button on her wall and said, Miss OP, I'm quitting today because you're all a bunch of hateful, unprofessional, mean-spirited a-holes. Except Mr. Computer and Miss Music, you're cool. I decided to finally take my darling Doug up on his offer for me to be a stay-at-home mom, and I'm cool with my mother-in-law. She can stay. Epilogue. I emailed our school district superintendent, our city's mayor, state governor, the entire school board, our local newspaper with all the files, photos, audio, and video I had taken. along with a terse one-page summary of what had been going on. Within weeks, every single one of the teachers and administrators, except the computer lab and the music lady, who I made a special effort to prove had partaked in no wrongdoing, had been fired and had their credentials at least suspended, and in most cases revoked outright. Only innocent parties like the custodial staff and the like emerged with their reputation unscathed. All the teachers who worked at the school who had been named in the principal's board's inquiry as having participated in fraudulent practices were blacklisted from teaching there or anywhere. After a few weeks of initial turmoil, all the students currently enrolled at the school were, due to parental pressure, allowed to keep their existing credit completion statuses. Students who had already graduated did not have their diplomas rescinded. All students were given vouchers to enroll at the competing independent charter school down the road. My own former school was shut down, stayed abandoned for a couple of months, but eventually turned into an electronics store. All the other stuff happened within a month of my quitting, but I told my hubby about it on the very day I came home. His eyes lit up like Christmas, and the raging justice boner he developed was just so hard that I was knocked up with our second child even before my back hit the mattress. Clayton and Sarah thought it was pretty cool. I've since made new friends around town to go along with my computer guy and music lady and college friends, especially with other moms. Doug is killing it at work and is thinking of starting his own company. Life is good. TLDR, don't F with the quiet ones. My lord. First of all, I don't know how long this video is going to be, but that story took me 57 minutes and 11 seconds to read. But that was a roller coaster of, that was so detailed in the backstory that I was like, man, this is probably going to get really good. I haven't read it before. I was like, this is my first time reading it, the entire thing. And this probably is by far one of my favorite ProRevenge stories. Like, she went secret agent with the mics underneath desk, walking by with her video, getting a triple, quadruple, quintuple terabyte of SD storage for her phone, cut up the video by herself, sent it out to an offshore email. She'd send it to the district superintendent, the mayor, the governor, the entire school board, the local newspaper. She showed everybody. I'm surprised I didn't get the email. This on ProRevenge, I would say, is nuclear revenge only because she got an entire building of people fired. You have to have some really high confidence in your plan to go out with this too. Congrats on her, like, keeping her wits during all this too, because I know how hard it can be when you feel lonely and you're getting bullied and all that. Like, good job to you. I'm glad life is good. Entitled Gossipy Witch sabotages my totally legal romantic relationship with my former teacher, ruins her career, and runs us both out of town. How about I destroy yours and your entire family's whole life? Lady, insert obligatory throwaway account explanation. It applies. I come from a really small town. Think the lidless, most nothing happens here city, extended layover in your flyover state nightmares. And my hometown is even more quiet than that. Think half a mile or more between neighbors, a single main street downtown, one McDonald's, one department store, one movie theater with 3 screens where everyone goes there Friday and Saturday night. Church every Sunday, everyone knows everyone else, or at least knows their business. The whole city is invested in the fortunes of the high school football team, that sort of place. Graduating class of 60, not because the senior class was dumb, it was just a tiny school. I didn't really fit in at school and kind of was a loner by choice. I cringe about it now that I am almost 26, but I was a wannabe emo goth rocker. I still got invited to a party with other kids, not because they liked me necessarily, but because I just wanted as many people to invite. My mom baked cookies and cakes for church, and when she wasn't doing that, she cut her hair in the town's one salon. My dad owned an internet cafe for a while when those were hot. Once everyone in our little nowhere town got Wi-Fi, he turned it into a tax service. Business is always slow because most people did their own taxes, but he didn't really depend so much on his business. He served 20 years as a petty officer in the Navy, and so he and my mom got by on his pension. In high school, I worked at a private burger place that competed mostly unsuccessfully against the town's single chain fast food restaurant. My boss always told me I should ask my mom to cut my hair and to stop looking like a dang girl. No thanks, old man. So with all this boredom everywhere, you can imagine that the sensation Miss Amber Fontaine caused when the high school hired her to be the 11th and 12th grade English teacher. Miss Fontaine was of French extraction and had moved to America in her later teens to go to college in New York. She was only 24 and very beautiful. She spoke perfect English, but did so with a very pleasant accent. Obviously, all the guys loved her, and lots of women hated her. She appeared oblivious to all the attention, however, and just stuck to her job. Really, we didn't know too much about her. She mostly kept to herself and nobody ever saw her hanging out with any men in town. And it wasn't for lack of men's trying. It soon became clear that she wasn't into dating any of the men in her city had to offer. Much later, I found out that she had just taken a job in our small town to gain experience, with the future goal of being a college professor in a big city. A sort of a 2-year plan. Obviously, I had a crush on her. We all did. It was still a small, church-going town, so nobody really acted out on his urges, or tried to harass her or anything like that. As guys, we talk about how hot she was amongst ourselves. Usual locker room stuff teenage boys do, but that was it. My one real out of school experience with Miss Fontaine was when she stopped by a burger joint I worked at and saw me working there. She told me I had a nice smile and that she wished I smiled more because in school I was always frowning because I was in my emo everyone sucks phase. When the food preppers came up with her food and handed it to me to give to her, I was impressed and not at all surprised that she ordered a salad. She didn't strike me as someone who ate the greasier slop we sold here. In school, the following Monday she smiled at me in the hall and I smiled back. She said, "You're learning," but not in a condescending or patronizing way, just a fun, kidding way, and I exchanged a smile with her every time after. And that was the extent of my great high school romance with Miss Fontaine. Exchanged a few hellos and smiles during my senior year when I was 17. Things changed the following year though. I was 18 and still working at the burger joint when Miss Fontaine comes into the restaurant. "Oh, hey, OP," she says, and she asks with real seriousness, "Are you going to college?" I tell her the truth. I'm working with my band. I cringe about this period of my life too. Playing guitar and saving money for community college. Only sort of the truth about the last thing. Honestly, most of my money I spent on weed and ecstasy. I was the main vocalist in addition to being the guitarist, and our band's only other member were Jerry, the bassist, and Gabe, the drummer. Both of them were just out of high school, like me, and like me, they had no plans to go to college. Gabe worked at the same burger joint as me, and Jerry, who had been one of my best friends in high school, ironically worked at the chain fast food restaurant down the street from my restaurant. Our lives at this time revolved around wasting our youth, skateboarding, getting high, and playing our punk band. We like to think that we played an emo punk metal fusion, but looking back, our sound hasn't aged well. Miss Fontaine tells me that now she's in her 2nd year of teaching, she has a better sense of how to do things. She tells me that she wished that her current students were as well behaved and put as much effort as me. I earned mediocre grades throughout high school, but consistently earned an A in English because I like to read. She says she'll see me around. A few days later, she comes into the restaurant again, and we get to talking, and she asks me if I'd like to go to the movie. I can tell she's bored because there's really no one her own age to hang out with in our town. Or, if there are, they're all lame. I think we both get the feeling that it's natural we should hang out. And now, I was completely out of high school, and she wasn't my teacher, and we were both adults. By this time, I was newly 18, and she had just turned 25. Why not? So that's how it started. We met up in the early evenings, totally innocent, and go to the movies. Or to dinner at the one good restaurant in town. Miss Fontaine was cool about letting me slide when it came to paying for our dates because she knew I made minimum wage. It was actually me who started to push our relationship to the next level. After a while, I started to hold her hand when we walked places. And finally, we started kissing. Never in front of anyone. She taught me a lot of French words and phrases over the next summer and fall while we were going out. My parents knew I was sort of dating my former teacher, but since it was keyword former, they didn't really raise any stink about it. Miss Fontaine would always try to convince me to go to college, but she did see our band play a few times when we got a rare gig at a roller rink, and she was nice enough not to tell us what she really thought of us. We didn't have sex until we'd been dating casually for nearly 2 months. That was my idea too, but she admitted that she really liked me and she wanted it to happen ever since we reconnected earlier that year, after I had graduated. I'm not the kiss and tell type, but my bandmates sort of knew the dynamic in my relationship with Miss Fontaine. She had been Amber ever since we first made out. They appeared cool with it. I stopped doing so much dope and really begun putting money away to save for college. The JC near my house was super cheap. Amber would often tell me she thought about applying there for work, but said that she really wanted to move to West Coast or back to the East Coast to teach at a college. Eventually, she told me she'd like me to come with her. After a few months, I was in love with Amber, and she was in love with me too. She said, we didn't throw our relationship in people's faces or show public affection, but it's not like we pretended not to know each other either. Amber had come around the house and my parents really liked her and thought she was a great influence on me. I didn't expect to cut my hair, but I was neater and more presentable. And eventually, I really did begin enrolling in GE classes at my local 2-year. But then, things went downhill fast. Out of seemingly nowhere, Amber got a call for a meeting from the local school board. And this is my secondary account of the situation, as Amber was the one there, not me. There had been reports that she was dating a former student, romantically, they were talking about me, and that she was having sexual relationship with said student while he was still a minor and still attending high school. Of course, she denied everything. Of course, they believed nothing. She had sent me a desperate text, and since ours is a small town, I think I've mentioned that a couple times already, I was at the meeting in literally 10 minutes. I told him the truth, that I was in Miss Fontaine's class in 12th grade, and that I was her student. That was all. I told the truth that we were reconnected several months after graduation, and only then did we begin dating. And I was over 18. The opinion of the board was essentially, look son, we appreciate the noble effort you're making to defend your friend's honor, but we're looking for the truth here, not omissions. I insisted that I was telling the truth and not trying to cover anything up. After a lot of tears, Amber was simply warned that it wasn't becoming of a teacher to be seen with students outside of campus, even if they're former students. And we assumed that was all. We were really wondering who had complained about us, or who would make up the tales about us having sex while I was still a minor and a student of Amber's. I was staying at Amber's apartment by this time. I kicked in a portion of the rent, of course. I had even met her parents, albeit only on webcam. They were good people. They don't speak a lot of English, but Amber filled them in with the missing pieces. They knew my age, and they were cool about it. We assumed it was just a small town gossip, and it would blow over. Boy, were we wrong. Over the next several weeks, Amber's meeting with the school board, vicious rumors started to spread. I won't insult your imagination, you know what people were saying. One day, my boss at the burger joint just told me he had to let me go. Some flim-flam excuse about the store losing money, and my hairstyle was driving away customers. Whatever, dude. Amber told me it wasn't my fault, and she promised to support me when I look for another job. But then one day, she got fired too. She was working as a probationary teacher, it meaning that during her first 2 years, she could be fired for any reason, and actually, no reason had even been given. Explanations were for those who earned the tenure. We both knew why she was getting fired, but the district strongly implied that it was simply because she was an ineffective teacher. In her defense, I looked at the data on the district website, and the number of students from our school who did well on standardized tests in her subject area leaped by double-digit points during the time she was a teacher there. Her numbers were far above state average, and to this day, since her departure, the same scores have nosedived. Amber told me that students tended to respond to her, and that she was very popular among the students. It was true that she was immensely popular when I was a student, and I'll assume the same carried true to the year after I graduated. Aside from the obvious fact that she was eye candy, she was simply a good teacher, a good person, and that's why the kids liked her. Lots of students threatened to riot when she was fired, but being a non-dramatic, non-attention-seeking person she is, Amber asked them just to focus on their studies and doing well, and helping their new teacher adjust he or she arrived to take her place. My dad told her she ought to sue the district, but Amber didn't want the drama. Besides, she said she was allowed to resign, so that it wouldn't show up on her record as of having been fired. Also, she said that the district promised not to try to revoke her teaching credential. Her own parents suggested maybe she had to come home, to France, but she insisted on sticking it out in America. My parents were cool and they offered to let her move in with us while she figured out her life. She's lucky that her parents are well off because they gave her some money to relocate to California. She asked me please come with her, that she loves me, and that we could start new there. I've always wanted to move to California, so I jumped at the chance. My parents were happy that I was in a relationship with a good person who obviously cared about me and gave us some money too. We got an apartment together in Los Angeles area. Neither of us drove, so we both got bikes to get around. Our new area was a world apart from our old life. Though I know Amber's own teenage years were in Paris, so Los Angeles would have been much of a culture shock to her. I immediately enrolled in a local community college and got a job as a waiter in a popular French restaurant. Our gimmick was that some of the servers actually spoke French. Over the last several months, Amber had taught me a lot of French, so I was a very popular server at the restaurant because I gave it authenticity. Unfortunately for Amber, the school district misled her about teaching license. When they promised not to have her license revoked, they spoke the truth, but they left out the part where they attached an official reprimand to it, accused her of an inappropriate relationship with students under her charge. So whenever Amber applied for teaching jobs, this would immediately come up as a red flag on her applications. Another surprise red flag was that the school she applied to would notice that she was fired from her last job. No, I wasn't, she'd say. I resigned. Yeah, but it says you were forced to resign to avoid termination for cause. Amber was 7 years older than me, but I think in some ways I know a lot more about how nasty Americans can be than her. Everywhere she went, doors would slam career-wise. She appealed to the state teaching license organization and they said they'd look into it, but months later, nothing came up. Calls to her former school resulted in getting a runaround. No one knew anything. So for the next several months, I was paying our day-to-day bills and helping to support Amber. Though I must acknowledge that the loans both our sets of parents gave us helped tremendously, and we couldn't survive without them. Finally, one day, Amber tells me, you know what? Screw trying to teach public schools. Oh, and LP, I'm pregnant. So 2 pieces of good news. Many months later, Amber and I are happily married. Wedding was beautiful in sunny Los Angeles. Amber's parents and mine and our other families had all attended. We had a pregnant honeymoon in France, and now we have a son, Youre. I'm closing in on earning my associates in information technology. I've been promoted to maitre at the restaurant and have health benefits for my wife and son. We live in a studio apartment, but at least it's a huge studio. And that's enough for now. Amber stays home with the baby, but she also teaches online English and French courses for a private school. So even though she's blacklisted from teaching in the public K-12 district, she can still teach, which is her passion. More months pass and I got my first job in IT, troubleshooting computers for a small company downtown. I make double what I used to make at the restaurant, and my employer has a program where I can finish my bachelor's while I work, and they will subsidize 50% for free, and the other 50% they will dock from my pay in small monthly installments. Sounds like an amazing deal, and I take it. We moved to a bigger apartment. Amber is making her awesome contribution both as a mother and to our finances with her tutoring. We're planning for her to eventually go back to school for her graduate degrees so she can finally fulfill her dream of teaching in college. Oh, more good news? OP, I'm pregnant again. Life is sweet. So while everything is going awesome, one day, I get a text from my mom. She was at a local school board meeting with her neighbors regarding a bill proposal to hire more teachers. Apparently, over the past few years, the population has grown and the high school needed to expand. So now, it's a 2-horse town, my mom says. While she was at a meeting, my mom ran into Jerry's mom. Jerry was a bassist for my own band that I quit once I got into a serious relationship with Amber. My mom never met Jerry or his mom, or at least in the way that connected them to me. The reason was because I never brought Jerry around our house. Because for a couple years, Jerry was my drug supplier. He had the hookup for anything you wanted. Well, what does all this have to do with anything? My mom doesn't know Jerry's mom, but she hears her and some lady talking about me and Amber. My mom heard them saying that Jerry had been the one to tell everyone about Amber and me supposedly having sex before I graduated. And his mom went straight to the school board. Their names as informers were protected under confidentiality. I had lost touch with Jerry over the years and had stopped playing music with him long ago. I knew he had resented all the time I was spending with my chick. It's a shame because he used to be such a good friend of mine. It sucked that he was getting behind my now wife and mother of my child and soon to be children fired from her career. Jerry's mom was a teacher at Amber's former school of employment. It became a joke of ours that his mom had a huge stick in her butt regarding prim and proper behavior and was a goody two-shoes teacher whose poop don't stink. Yet her kid Jerry, a student at her school, is basically the biggest drug dealer in town. Also, looking back, I know he had a crush on Amber too and probably always resented that I got to be in a relationship with her and he didn't. Maybe it's because she knows quality, you jerk. I was interested in learning that Jerry's mom was now on the school board. I didn't tell Amber about this all right away. I just asked her to let me know what she remembered about Miss Jerry's mom. She told me that Jerry's mom was always really mean to her and often one of the main instigators in getting everyone, the adults, on campus to exclude her from teacher social activities. It's one of the main reasons why Amber didn't make friends with the other teachers. Amber tells me that the male teachers tended to be nicer to her at first, but the female teachers overwhelmingly despised her before they even knew her. Jerry's mom, Amber told me, was also the teacher she knows who started a petition not to renew her contract for a second year at the school. This was the first I heard about this. Evidently, only a few female teachers signed the petition, but the petition was placed in Amber's permanent file as evidence that the staff lacks confidence in her. They were basically setting her up to be fired even though she was doing a good job at teaching and the students liked her. Well, I'm more Cali than Iowa these days, but I still keep in touch with a few friends, now grown up, I knew in school, including Gabe, the drummer from our old band. From what I hear, Jerry manages the burger joint I used to work at, because the old guy who owns it is retired. I have a social media account, but only use it to contact people in emergencies. I never update anything. My profile is practically blank online. I'm not one of those people who checks it daily or uploads pics of my lunch. Didn't post about marrying or having kids or moving to LA. I told people matter directly. Jerry was still my friend on social media even though we stopped talking ages ago. So I clicked his profile. Yep, he definitely managed the old place of employment. I clicked on his friends and family's profiles and recognized his mom, my old history teacher. She was on the school board now, sanctimonious as ever. I think I mentioned before that I came from a small town, and in a small town, there often isn't anything for bored kids to do other than do dumb stunts or do drugs. And for the biggest loser kids of all, the group that included me, we were dumb enough to record ourselves partying and talking junk and doing that aforementioned drugs. That's exactly what my band used to do all the time. Whenever we had a show, we'd go around taping ourselves using our cell phones. We'd take a video of us rocking out, skating, drinking beer at the vacant lot, take video of us getting high. We'd also talk to the camera. I hadn't thought about the old recordings in years, but I never erased them from my old phones. I'm the kind of guy who hoards his cell phones, not because I think they will increase the value or that I find them especially interesting, but I kind of think of them like file cabinets of my past because I don't erase anything aside from phone numbers. I don't really transfer data on one phone to a successor. Easy as it would be, my current boss knows I used to do drugs, and they don't care. In IT, I'm told everyone used to get lit, and many still do. I asked my wife offhand if her new job knows about what happened in our old town. She says yeah, but they don't care about any of that. They only care that she teaches expert level conversational French. That's what their clients, many of them traveling professionals, demand. Many of her co-workers, she tells me, had a few felonies on their records, but her employer was a firm believer in rehabilitation. Copacetic. So I check some of my old videos and find what I need. I have no trouble finding videos of Jerry getting high as a mother effer. That was practically every video. And in practically every video, he brags about his parents know he's a druggie and a dealer and want to ship him off to the army and make a man out of him. The video I really want is, nope, it's not on this phone. Maybe the LG? Nope, just more of Jerry rolling on ecstasy at a rave we snuck in out of state to attend when we were in 11th grade. Maybe my old Galaxy? Bingo. Jerry talks about how his mom knows all about the drug use and sometimes even smokes weed herself with his dad, and how they caught him with cocaine once and yelled at him and his dad kicked his butt. But then Jerry came home the next day from school to find his mom was coked out on the kitchen table and that she had called in sick that day. The video was time-stamped. I think that'll do. I still don't tell Amber. It would only upset her in her condition. But I asked my mom to contact the info of all the people who run the little town school board. I already know the school's basic email address, and I graduated not too long ago, and so most of the administrators are still mid-career at my former high school. I still have their emails. I make a throwaway email account and attach the relevant video to it and send it to everyone that matters in town. All the teachers, the administrators, even from the elementary and middle schools. The church, the pizza place, the burger joint owner, the roller rink boss, you name it, they got the files. The files where Jerry exposes himself as a coked out drug dealer with his mom having full knowledge of the fact and her husband even indulging in the drugs himself. The next day, Amber asks me while she's feeding our son, "Honey, why are you so happy?" I tell her and she starts crying. "No, I'm not sad," she reassures me. "I'm just so happy you did this for me." Then me, Amber, Rachule, and our bun in the oven goes for a walk because such a nice day. Still, need a haircut. Not getting one. Do I even need to say what happened afterward? All this ancient history shouldn't matter, but in a small town, it's devastating. The videos are just of Jerry talking trash. Who knows if they even tell the truth? Doesn't matter. In a small town, gossip becomes gospel. Kind of how everyone believed me and Amber were screwing before I turned 18, even though that was 0% true and they ran us out of town on a rail. My parents had to endure the fallout of my disgrace when I left town years ago with my French tramp, as all the idle busybodies have dubbed my wife. My mom and dad made their peace with it and have numbed themselves to the slurs, and always stood up for us. They are what's good about small town America. Jerry got fired from his job, police searched his house, and that is to say, his mom's house, and found a lot of drugs. Evidently, when the rumors went flying that Miss Jerry's mom had a drug-dealing son, kids busted for drugs at the high school caved under pressure to admit who hooked them up. Oopsie, so he was telling the truth. Jail for you, cock-blocking D-bag. His mom was summarily dismissed from her job, along with the appropriate blacklisting that being a drug-abusing, child-endangering, fraud-committing public official essentials. My mom wasn't clear on the details, but there's a possibility she and her husband might face jail time too. It came out that Jerry's dad had been cheating on his wife for years with a woman from the church. Jerry's whole family and persona non grata. They want to leave town but can't pending court case. Until then, they'll just be hated to their face. I'll hate them from across the country. Small town. Everyone knows everyone. Or at least their business. Which means sooner or later, word will slip. People will drop the "it's confidential" charade and figure out that I was responsible for a family's downfall. I don't give a freak. Jerry, you listening? Good. Come at me, bro. Remember at the beginning when I said I knew this had to be a good story? That was an understatement. I know like 3 stories ago I said that was my favorite story about the teacher, but this teacher story is even better. This is crazy. This is written like a novel almost. I cannot believe he sent that video to everyone, like the freaking owner of the burger place too, and the church people. That sabotage, that revenge. This is not pro-revenge. He's not a professional. This is nuclear revenge. He nuked that entire family's life. They got exactly what was coming to him. Jerry for being a snitch, his mom for being a snitch to the school goddamn council, Jerry's dad just cause he's Jerry's dad cheating. I enjoyed this story to an extreme amount. I'm saving this. We're going to be doing an r/malicious compliance, which is people conforming to the letter but not the spirit of the request. Company policy outranks a written contract? Okay. We'll stick to the policy then. Early last year, my wife got a promotion which required moving across the state. Her company offered a very generous moving package, which was formally written up in a contract, which we had to sign and agree before promotion was official. One of the big draws was that the contract said we would pay for all closing costs and related fees for not only the sale of our previous house, but the purchase of our new house in our new city. I was a little dubious and had my wife clarify, as there are associated fees due at closing which aren't really sale fees, such as prepaid homeowners insurance for the year, taxes, HOA fees, but the contract said all fees, and the HR specialist reiterated this, so we were happy. Cut to a few months later, we're moved in, rent short term, found a new home, closed, and moved into it. The final reimbursement check comes in and it's about $1,000 short of our prepaid. I wasn't shocked, but I double checked the contract and yep, clear as day, all fees was included. So my wife reached out to the HR moving supervisor to check this, and she was pretty curtly told that we had been misled and that our company policy was only to pay closing costs themselves and all fees just meant closing cost fees. That's always been the company policy, we were told, and the contract wasn't literal on all fees. This went back and forth for a day. My wife politely escalated it and we did get a sympathetic HR director, but policy was policy, so her hands were tied. Here's the malicious compliance though. While the company policy said that we couldn't get prepaid fees reimbursed, she, the HR director, asked for all of our moving and rental receipts, as company policy does state that those would be paid. The HR director poured over our receipts and all for another day and reached back with a formal letter which said, "Sorry, company policy doesn't allow prepaid reimbursement, so you won't get your $1,000. But I did find that you weren't adequately reimbursed for your move and short-term rental per company policy, and we have submitted a claim for you for that amount." Another day later, we got a check for $5,800. We just wanted them to honor the contract, but following company policy to the letter got us another $4,800. We didn't realize we were owed, so I'd say it worked out in the end. Edit. To answer the common question about being owed the $1,000 per the contract, what we were told is that the contract we signed was supposed to have the company policy amendum, which had the definitions and all other fees is defined as excluding prepaids, insurance, etc. So someone did goof by A, not sending us that, and B, telling us that stuff was included. So while we could have hassled for that $1,000, it wouldn't be worth the time, fees, or money, especially when the company has been above and beyond for my wife on everything else. Good raises, great benefits, great boss, constantly training her on things she asked to learn, etc. We've also learned from experience that small claim court isn't always the way to go. TLDR, property manager from the rental during the move screwed us out of $1,800. Ignored our lawyers. I had to screw them by calling them out on the website since court wasn't worth it. Wow, that's good. They're up by $4,800. I would count that as a win. That HR director was a real MVP of this story. Good job. That's good on you. Let's read one more medium-sized story from r/Maliciouscompliance. I launch a complaint against my regulatory body, and all of a sudden I get an audit. I don't make it a lot of fun. I'm a paramedic. I hold a license to practice in my own home, province, and we are a self-regulated profession, answering to the Province College of Paramedics. The COP sucks, and they run basically by the dreads of society, who decide to become bureaucratic psychopaths. This past year, they had a problem with my CPR certificate. Apparently, being an instructor with the Red Cross was not good enough. I was forced to take heart and stroke. Such a BS and arbitrary decision. For God's sake, I teach CPR 30 times a year. Anyways, I got my card and I was able to keep my license. Since they screwed with my career, I wrote a letter to the register complaining about their screwery. The problem is I was actually suspended for non-compliance and couldn't work for 11 days. I was given 3 days notice to get a new CPR card, and our regulation closes December 31st. Of course, everyone who teaches was closed for the holidays. I didn't particularly enjoy my unpaid holiday and a written reprimand from work, so I fired off a letter. While I will admit it was highly vitriolic, I thought it was necessary to convey my displeasure since it cost me nearly 2 weeks of pay. Fast forward 6 weeks and I'm browsing through the email spam folder, just by chance looking for an email my grandmother told me she sent, and lo and behold, I found an email from the COP urgent practitioner audit. With absolute horror, I open it. I've got 2 days left to submit proof of my yearly professional development requirements. I'm aghast. They sent a single email that was filtered out by my Gmail. No calls, no follow-up. And once again, I'm risking getting my license suspended and possibly revoked. Those dirty mother effers. I think it's not enough you take $700 from me every year. Not enough you freaking suspended me without actual cause. 9 years out of the last 10, a Red Cross instructor card was sufficient. You give me an audit and I don't ensure I know about it? Well, I've got a vindictive streak in me and it really comes out. But today, I feel a great injustice has been done. So every year, I have to do training. Classroom or online courses to keep up my skills and knowledge. My employer provides a ton of material so I can meet my registration requirements. We have a credit system and generally you have 5 credits per hour up to maximum 40 per course. Yearly, we have to submit 90 credits to keep ourselves in good standing. My audit requires I submit scans or PDFs of certificates and of course outlines that reflect both content and hours. I've done a lot of courses this past year. I like learning, so I'm way beyond the required 90 credits. I've taken nearly 30 courses, some long, some short, some online, some in classrooms. I submit all my documents in PDF forms, certs, outlines. Dang it, I'm just so paranoid about the possibility of not sending in everything I need that I resort to taking a separate screenshot of all my digital manuals, each page saved individually of course, and scans of each page of my physical course manuals alongside my certificates. You can never be too careful, I reason. It ends up being over 500 documents and unfortunately, I don't have the luxury or time to label any of them. They get several batches of emails with PDFs named Untitled 1 through 594. Maybe it wouldn't have been so bad, but being threatened with the deadline, I didn't sort them, and there's really no logical order to their position in 500. Enjoy your day, a-hole. I'm assuredly compliant. I did get a call from the college, nice of these jerks to finally call, asked me to resubmit, but aw shucks, I'm in New Zealand for vacation visiting my grandmother nearly 10,000 kilometers from my laptop. Eat poop, college paramedics. I still work as a paramedic, and I haven't heard boo since. Gosh dang. The top comment says, haven't heard from them? Better check the spam folder. You've probably been fired for 2 years now. No, but gosh, that does suck. That's a terrible situation to be in. It sucks to be that one guy that has to sort through the 1 out of 554 files or whatever it was. I feel for that man or woman. Won't swap places because tickets are the law? Enjoy your night smelling poo-poo. So this happened when me and my 2 friends were traveling to another city in my country with a quite old and slow night train. We have bought tickets spontaneously and quite late, so we're there divided into different compartments. Usually it's not a problem to come to an agreement with people to swap places with you. It's quite common practice. The wagon had about 9 compartments. Each has 2 top and 2 bottom shelves. Me and one of my friends were in compartment number 2, close to the conductor's office. I don't know, this small room where they sit. And we were on the top and bottom shelves. And my other friend was in compartment number 9, top shelf. This other friend's compartment was next to the toilet room. The thing is, you usually wouldn't want to be in number 9 on these old trains because 90% of the time, it smells horrible all the way because of the toilet. We wanted to ask someone from our compartment to swap with our friend, but it turned out we had a nice couple going with us. So it's us 2 who would have to move. So we haven't unpacked yet, as well as many of the passengers. And we went to visit our friend in number 9 and asked someone from his compartment to swap places with us. And we felt lucky as we saw that we had another couple with them, occupying top and bottom shelves, just like us. Swapping should be easy as we are further from the toilet and that's a huge perk. The conversation went as follows. Edited fake names instead of abbreviations because it's hard to read. Alex, friend who was with me. Nick, my friend from number 9. Karen, stupid lady. Poop man, her stupid boyfriend. Hey, we have a friend traveling here. Would you mind swapping places with us? We have the same shelves as you do. No, get away from my compartment. Note that Nick is there as well as another passenger. Lady, please, it's farther from the toilet and we'll be traveling together as a group. Yeah, please, if you would. Listen, kids, would you calm down, dang it? I paid for my tickets and we are staying just in the place we paid for. I am not into some stupid bargains. Excuse me, we're offering better spots just because we want to be with our friend. I'm not falling for this. You probably have ticks on your pillows or worse. What? No, it's not like that. We just wanted to have a chat and maybe play cards. Listen, screw off with that stupid junk. I paid and I stay here. And you're supposed to stay in your shelves. It's the law when you buy tickets. Well, that escalated quickly. There is no such law and no one cares, but okay. Her boyfriend made sure he called us morons a few times so we could hear it, going back to our compartment. We were confused of such a negative reaction as to something you come across. Usually people would politely decline and that's it. Our friend told us that they were complaining to him about us. What a lovely couple. Fast forward a few hours and we're getting ready to sleep. Nick decided to pay us a visit. He comes and says that number 9 starts to smell like poop and pee because people have been using the toilet. We mock him and laugh about having to spend the night with those stupid people and smelling poop. The next couple that stayed with us in number 2 also laughed with us, as we befriended them and told them their story already. About 10 minutes pass, and as someone knocks on the door, we are a bit confused of who it might be. We open the door, and would you know, the stupid man is there. You guys, we have thought about your offer and we think that we would like to accept it. You mean swap? We've already unpacked? Yeah, I'm sure this is fast and no problem. And my woman is unable to sleep there. Is it the smell? Yeah, it's bad. She's sick because of it. I see my friend and I already feel what he was about to say. I hear his inner drums preparing for the moment. Sorry, man, we're paying on the shelves that we paid for. It's the law. I made a walrus gulp and closed my face from laughing. Nick chuckled in his hands, and the nice couple had a happy, shocked expression on their faces. The a-holes ended up spending the night with the smell worsening every hour. Nick also suffered there, but he said it was worth it. Listening to Karen eating her man's brains out over her not being able to fall asleep. She tried to spray her perfumes around, but it only turned the smell into a pile of poop and flower bed. TLDR, we politely asked other passengers to swap places with us to be with our friend. Even though his compartment was right next to the smelly toilet, they refused rudely and called us names. Came back later to ask to do the swap because they couldn't bear the smell. We answered with their own words. Tickets are the law. Edit, thanks so much for the silver. It's my first one ever. This is such a good malicious compliance because I love when people use their own words against them. Like, that's like the ultimate screw you. Also, I read in the comments that this guy is actually Russian. He speaks Russian as his first language, and that's why a couple of his statements were a little bit weird, like I made a walrus gulp and eating her man's brains out. But all in all, it was a really good story. Can't lie. Next. This next one seems to be really short. Some parking fines? Fine, some parking. This was a year or 2 ago. The house I was living in has a garage, but it's been converted to a workshop, so I always had to park on the street. I got a letter from the council to say that they were going to be doing road servicing for all the streets in the area, and all cars had to be off the road so that they could replace the bitumen. I don't know if I said that right. The problem was that they didn't say what streets or in what order that they would be doing them in. So me, trying to be considerate, I moved my car off the road and parked in my old driveway between the road and the footpath. I made sure I was not blocking the footpath or on the grass nature strip. The very next day, I noticed some parking ticket on my car. The reason printed in the fine was vague, mentioning obstruction of access, so I rang the council. The conversation was as follows. Me: hi, I received a parking fine that I don't think is valid. Can I get some more information about the road rule violation so I can contest and have it canceled? Councilperson: your car was in the way. It should have been parked on the road. I moved it off the street as per your request to clear the road, and I only parked it in my driveway so that it wasn't on the bitumen, as you hadn't given me any indication on which roads were going to be resurfaced. Then it should have been on a different road. Which one? I don't want to be on the way while you were resurfacing. Are you dumb? If you were working on the street, maybe you could park on Smith Street. So that's exactly what I did. Apparently, that's also what the 3 other people did that also got tickets. Now, Smith Street has 3 patches of old bitumen where the council workers had to carefully resurface around the cars that were parked exactly where we were told. That kind of sucks for both people. Like, the pavers kind of got... Like, I know it wasn't the council workers that were out there resurfacing the road, so they had to go and do a job around those cars. And this guy got fined just because the council workers was big jerks. But I mean, at least the council workers didn't get what they wanted. So for this next story, I had to look up what Mbop or Mbop was. I guess it's a group. Like an artist that does songs. It looked like it was really old songs, so it's probably not in my generation. And if the boss threatens firing the staff for playing Mbop from an approved company CD list, I'll get you demoted. I worked one summer at a canoe rental company located in the large provincial park. The place employed about 60 people aged 16 to 33 on average, with a few management who were older. One of the rules at the place was the only acceptable music that could be played on the speaker system was from a specific list of approved albums that were in a book filed with CDs. One of my jobs was to open up the shop in the morning. This meant that I started about 15 minutes before everyone else. My usual routine would be get everything unlocked, the tills in place, move a few canoes that were for first thing rental that morning, and then exactly 0700 press play on the CD player. I would go and get my morning coffee, eat breakfast, and watch the world go by for 15 minutes before going back to work. Usually the person who started at 0700 in the shack would be the one responsible to pick and start the music. However, As I was really efficient, I would be able to get my morning duties done, press play, and be long gone from the vicinity before that song I had picked was apparent to people listening. For the first few days, I chose nice classic upbeat music to get everyone going. Beatles, Led Zeppelin, maybe play some CCR, etc. I really enjoyed sipping my coffee and watching all the kids starting work, bopping their heads to the music as they flipped canoes, cleaned off tables, etc. The assistant manager was one of those my way or the highway individuals. If you got on his bad side, he would give you the worst jobs, belittle you in public, and essentially just be a jerkhole. We shall call him Assistant Dick. One afternoon, one of the younger women working at the shack put on the CD from the book by Hanson called Bop. Everyone in the area who could hear the speaker started bopping their head to the music and started singing along to the chorus. All in all, everyone seems to be enjoying the song. Everyone except Assistant Dick. Right when the chorus drops, he comes running out of the office and starts very loudly yell at the woman working the shack. I won't quote him verbatim, but essentially he told her, "F you stupid jerk. If you or anyone else plays the song again, you will be fired." He makes her take off her uniform and leave work for the day. I overhear parts of the discourse and approach Assistant Dick and ask why he reacted the way he did and that the CD she chose was in the approved binder. So what's the issue? You can't fire or threaten someone's job if they are following the rules. His response was something along the lines of that the song would make the company look bad and shouldn't be played. He refused to apologize to the woman when I told him he was out of line, and his response was to threaten my job as well. Next morning at 0700, and every morning I worked thereafter, guess what song I chose to play at full volume? Remember, by the time the chorus drops, I'm long gone from the shack. So whoever was unfortunately closest to the radio at the moment would get yelled at and threatened, etc. I made several extra copies of the CD, so every day Assistant Dick would throw out Hanson's CD and the next day it would get played again. I made a point to talk with anyone that got yelled at afterwards and explain their legal rights to them and that they had witnessed how out of line Assistant Dick had been. No one got fired or officially disciplined despite Assistant Dick's attempts. This went on for about a month until the owner got in early one day and observed the whole process, especially how Assistant Dick talked to the staff. The album was on the approved list and it was totally acceptable choice. Assistant Dick was demoted and was not hired back the next year. I, of course, played the song daily, the rest of the season whenever, when now, just called Dick, was also working. It gives me a little skip in my step when I hear that song and picture the scowling face storming across the dock, with the sun rising over the horizon and the birds chirping in the background. Beautiful. TLDR, assistant boss threatens people they will be fired if he played Hanson Mbop from the approved company CD list, so I play it every day. Today we have the time I did exactly what the Japanese police and Mr. Belligerent wanted me to do. To start, this is not malicious compliance against the Japanese police, as it is against a customer from HE Double Hockey Sticks. Oh, and if the police are called to a dispute, they won't take sides unless the law is being broken in front of them. That is for the courts to sort out. They just keep the peace, talk to the two parties, and try to work things out. On to the story. In 2008, I think, I was a club owner in Japan. I rented the place from a rascally old man who let me do pretty much what I wanted. The club had a motorized mirror ball hanging in the ceiling, a pool table, and a projector there left over from the former renters that the landlord said I could use for free. I made a lot of money using the downtime. A club is usually wasted space during the day, setting up party space type events, after weddings, reunions, and the like. Here's an actual picture of one of the sit-down type events. Here it is, basket of glory, 3, 2, 1, let's go. The tables would disappear at night and you would have a dance floor. One party got a little rowdy, and during the festivities, the crazy host lady thought it was a good idea to pick up a chair and swing it over her head. Don't ask me why, she was very drunk. The arc of the swing launched the mirror ball into the air, smashing to the floor in 1,000 shiny pieces. After my staff cleaned up the broken glass, she promised to pay for it, and I thought that was that. I jumped online, found a like model on Amazon, and added the price to their bill. I don't remember the price, but being motorized, it was past $100, with non-motorized versions selling for much less. About 3 hours after, a very angry host lady's husband shows up, receipt in hand, saying I scammed the drunk host lady, and she was going to call the police and shut me down. And rabble. Our back and forth went on for quite a bit, and honestly, I was getting a bit tired of his macho in-your-face attitude. He then said he would talk to my landlord and get me evicted. I was at the eye-rolling stage and sarcastically said, "Oh, don't get him involved. You will regret making him mad." Unfortunately, sarcasm doesn't translate well in Japanese, and he jumped on the humor gaff to say I was threatening his life and called the cops. The cops were totally professional, but a bit overzealous in responding to the call. 3 patrol cars and 2 bikes showed up. I guess the guy made it out that I was in a league with the mob, and I guess Gaijin plus Yazuku in the 2000s equal overkill. They listened to us together. Then they separated us and got each side of the story. Then, just to be sure, the police talking to each other switched places and asked us all over again the same questions. Slowly the cars, one by one, went back to work, leaving only 2 motorcycle cops with us, and the back and forth argument, all very tedious. Finally, one cop pulled us aside and said, "Look, he's willing to pay for the damage, but only if you apologize for threatening his life." Being American, where we see lawsuits everywhere, I was reluctant to say such a thing. So I walked back to the man and the police and I asked everyone, if I apologize for him getting frightened, this whole business is done? Angry man has his arms crossed and a macho smug, "Yeah, B, say you're sorry" look at his face. The 2 policemen are also waiting for me to speak. "I am really sorry. Really so sorry you got scared so easily. Had I known," implying weakness, "I would have chosen my words more carefully." Dang if extremely polite Japanese can't turn into a slap in the face. Dude turns beet red, and I swear to you, the policeman on the left let his guard down just enough to let the corners of his mouth twitch into a grin, just for a moment. Then the policeman said, "He did as you asked. Now time to go home," and they herded him into his car. Thank you very much for sitting through all that. Hope nothing was lost in translation. TLDR, dude asked me to say sorry for threatening him, so I make him out to be a scaredy cat. Edit, you're alright, this happened in the 2000s. The date in the picture is 2008. Memory is fleeting, scary thing. Sorry again. I will leave the story unedited and live with the shame. That's exactly what he gets. That's probably the biggest kick in the nuts you can do to some guy that thinks he's like all big old macho man. It just imply that he's like some kind of sissy. He's like, he's so insecure. He's just like, I'm not a sissy. To those guys, you just want to be like, chill out, man. It's okay to relax. Like, just try and be yourself, man. That's exactly why I love malicious compliance. People getting exactly what they deserved and what they asked for. Everyone's happy. I have to take a sick day? Alright then. I apologize for formatting as I am in mobile. For a bit of context, my daily commute is at minimum 2 hours. Yes, I know. I could go into details on why I haven't moved closer, but I won't right now. Today I woke up not feeling too well, headache, a bit fever, and just not feeling too good. So I decided to stay home. I informed that I'll be staying home, but since I have a lot of work to do, I'm going to work from home. My workload is insane, to be honest. A few minutes later, I get an email from my boss saying that since I was sick, I should take a sick day. Basically, they don't want to pay me for working from home. That if I work, they'll decide later on if my work from home is approved or not. Oh really? Well fine then. I emailed them back saying I was taking the day as a sick day then, because I'm not risking the chance of working and then not getting paid. Now as I lay peacefully in my bed, my email is being flooded with things that need to be done. Simple things I could do if I was allowed to work, but I'm not. So you're gonna have to wait until tomorrow, if I'm feeling better, so I can solve these things for you. So sorry. I love this, short and sweet. I love his attitude. This top comment is worth reading. In a previous role, I requested to work from home, but was told it wasn't possible. Therefore, I refused from that point to do anything at all from home and outside normal working hours. This was a global company, and my role involved working directly from the UK with teams from both China and the USA. So my working day could in theory stretch between 6 AM to 11 PM depending on the project. Everything still got done eventually, but simple conversation took 3 days to complete, as our working days never aligned, and I refused to answer messages and emails at home. It took a couple of weeks and a project involving the Chinese CEO before my boss in Europe realized what was going on. How did your boss react? Well, he said, previous role. Let's read one last sweet and short ones because they're just so nice. Got to use for free photography. Made sure a special friend was included. I'm not a professional photographer, but I do have decent equipment and portfolio, so a lot of friends will hit me up for discount photo shoots. Most of them pay or at least buy me dinner, but others expect me to do it for free. I'm close to my ex-boyfriend's family, so I was thrilled when his younger sister asked me to come to her prom pictures earlier this month, and then she told me to bring the camera. I did mention to her that I'm doing online school and I have an exam due that week, so the pictures might not be ready for another week. She was fine with that. Within 2 hours of taking pictures of half a dozen high school students, I ended up with 300 plus shots, because everyone wanted the perfect Instagram shot. Whatever, I can go home, study, and slowly work on sorting through the pictures later. They're not paying me, so I wasn't exactly motivated either. I get a text from her and her mom around 11 PM. They wanted the pictures edited and uploaded by the next morning so they could be shown off on social media. I tried to explain that I'm studying, but they weren't having it. They said, We don't care how you edit it, just make it look nice. Fine, I spent 3+ hours working on the pictures and editing them really nicely, that I even was proud. Then, I had Shrek into the background of every single picture. Shrek with his head poking out from between the kids, Shrek posing happily. Shrek had a very nice time at prom. Evidently. I uploaded the pics and sent them off. No one noticed the extra guest for weeks, and I got my ears chewed out by my ex's sister that I didn't appreciate her 900 followers on Instagram seeing Shrek grinning between her and her boyfriend. They asked me to edit however I wanted, so I delivered. Shrek was one of my best clients I ever had. This is exactly something I would do. This is more of a petty revenge. Actually, it's both petty revenge and malicious compliance. She didn't maliciously comply, but she got a little petty revenge in there with all those Shreks. That's a really good one, I'm not gonna lie. Blame me for cheating because I didn't do your laundry? Okay. I dated this a-hole before dear hubby. He was the cheating kind. We'll call him Chad. About 6 months into our relationship, some girl from another school went bat guano rage that Chad was cheating on her with me. Spammed everyone in her address book with the news. Left me with some wild crazy voicemails. Generally lost her poop very publicly on him. Upon confronting Chad with the shocking news, he made a terrible mistake. He decided to blame me for his cheating. If I did the laundry and made dinner more often, he wouldn't have cheated on me. How these things are related to this is baffling, but it definitely got him on the express train to X-Town. We didn't even live together, so it was an especially odd choice for him to blame and shame game. I did, however, have keys to his place and malice in his heart. You want me to do your laundry? I'll do your laundry. I swung by the local big box bath store and picked up the cheapest bright red towel they had. You know, the one that looks sued dye for its entire lifespan as a towel, turning everything that will ever get near it pink. Then I loaded up his washer with my towel of bleeding dye and everything white I could find in his hamper. Underwear, socks, t-shirts, you name it. It was going to be pink. Then, I executed the tackiest breakup of my life. You think getting dumped by a text message is bad? I did it by post-it note. I left a "we're through" type message. Just in case the number of names I called him after that blame and shame attempt haven't made it completely clear, he has sort of run away before I got all the way to "we're over." It worked out even better than I hoped because he didn't come home for a few days. He'd bugged out to visit his family for a long weekend to avoid the heat from 2 pissed women and their friends. By the time he got home, he had damp, pink, mildewy mess in his washer. Based on the angry voicemails I got, Chad didn't really want me to do his laundry after all. TLDR, Chad blamed cheating on me because I didn't do his laundry. We didn't live together. I turned his whites into pink and left him to rot wet while he was out of town. Broke up with him via post-it on the washer. This is revenge instead of malicious compliance. I mean, she got some revenge on him. I know that guy had to be extremely mad, but he really deserved that, honestly. Think you deserve more than 10% off and refuse to listen to our warnings? Okay then, you can't have it. Hey y'all, first ever post here and it's not much, but it put a smile on my face, so I figured, why not? On mobile, sorry for formatting, etc. TLDR at the bottom. So I work customer service at a very popular retail store that basically sells everything from food to electronics to plants. You've all been to this poop hole, and I'm sure you know exactly where I'm talking about. But I'm not gonna say the name since I'm still there until uni coop starts. I think she's talking about Walmart. So since I work in customer service desk at one of the least respected stores, I pretty much see the scum of the earth daily, and most management is part of that. Making rules that make sense on paper, but not in practice. Giving screaming customers whatever they want cause they screamed, but not giving anything to the people who are kind to the workers, etc. Today, management had our backs though. I have lots of stories, but this one is fresh from yesterday, so here you go. A woman comes up to the customer service desk asking if she can have a discount on a pair of shoes because they look tattered and bad. There was nothing wrong with the shoes, they just looked cheap because, well, that's what they were. My coworker was the one she approached and not wanting to argue, told her we can give her 10% off. This is the max discount even for associates. We aren't really technically supposed to give discounts on anything, but it's a big company and they don't care about a few bucks whatsoever. This girl gets mad though and says she doesn't think she should have to pay anything even close to full price for something of such low quality. The shoes were $14.97 by the way. My coworker explains that's the best we can really do for her, but she could buy a pair that she thinks is less tattered. She says they all look like that because that's how the shoe's supposed to look, and that she wants to speak to a manager because she deserves to pay less for something so tattered. At this point I stepped in because we were so understaffed that night. I knew the managers were currently dealing with other issues, associates being nowhere to be found, an issue in the parking lot, lots of sick calls, etc. And in my experience with most people that just need to be told by another person the same thing we were told the first time, I told the lady that the max discount anyone was able to give the store is 10%, and that's only actually for broken items, even for associates. And if the manager comes up, they will most likely tell her she's not getting no discount at all. She scoffs and says, Sure, I want to speak to them anyways, and we'll see. I really want these shoes, and they're the only ones in my size, and they're tattered. I try to tell her again that the managers won't give her a higher discount, and that it'll probably just take them 10 minutes to get to the front, but she tells me that she wants the manager and she'll see for herself. Cue malicious compliance. I had originally thought it'd be an a-hole tax situation, but it turned out better. So I called for a manager, and like I predicted, took about 10 to 15 minutes for them to come to the front. And I guess they weren't very happy about it, presumably, since they were in the middle of something else. So at this point, this lady has already wasted at least 15 minutes of her day waiting here, making faces at me and my coworkers as though she won. I point the manager toward the customer, and when she gets there, they go ask what the issue is. The lady starts bashing me and my coworkers, saying that we have horrible customer service and that the customer is always right, blah blah blah. And she wants a bigger discount than just 10% because these shoes are broken. She now says, I guess since we told her we won't get a discount unless it's broken, she doesn't want to pay even close to the full price for something so low quality. She repeated. My manager looks at it and tells her they're not broken, and that's just how the shoe looks. The lady argues, saying that she deserves a bigger discount. At this point, I guess my manager just snapped and said, okay, well if you're sure that they're broken, then we can't actually sell them. They have to go through our claims department and then get sent back to the company. Sorry for your troubles. Is there anything else I can help you with? As she takes the shoes, puts them into the bin we have behind the desk that goes to claims. The woman is speechless for a second, and the manager walks away when the woman starts stuttering to us that she'll take 10% now. We told her no. She even said she'll pay full price since they were the only one in her size. We just told her over and over that no, we have to send them back to the company since they're broken, and we can't sell them to anyone. She eventually gives up and walks away. My coworker and I had a good laugh. About 5 minutes later, she walks past the desk again and yells, I'm not buying a single thing from this store anymore. I responded, okay, have a great night, and smiled all cheery while she shuffled and left. Unfortunately, I'm about 99% sure she'll be back in a week like every other customer who's never shopping here again, but one can hope. TLDR, lady thinks she's entitled to a discount more than 10% my coworker offered her on a perfectly fine pair of shoes because they looked bad. Wants to speak to a manager after I warned her she'll probably say no discount at all. The manager tells her we can't sell her the shoes at all since she says that they're broken and takes them away, and so she can't get any in her size at all. That's exactly what this Karen gets. I bet you everywhere she goes, she says, I want to speak to your manager, and gets exactly what she wants in this one lovely occasion. This one awesome, lovely, malicious compliance occasion, she got nothing. The top comment is, I always respond to, I'm never shopping here again, with a big thank you in the most amazed yet sincerely pleased voice I can muster. I actually used to work at Walmart. I worked in the money center area, and that also dueled with customer service. So I had to go work in customer service at Walmart, which I'm pretty sure this girl was talking about. I understand this to the max. My job was bad, but that job was terrible. Everyone just screaming and crying to get their way, throwing big baby fits. You're just like, please get out of here. Like always, I have no clue how long this video is gonna be, but let's do one more small little malicious compliance. I warned you I was sick. So from a previous post, you all know that my mom's ex is an abusive jerk. And one day I was cornered because I zoned out during math lesson he was giving. Homeschooling with an abusive a-hole really sucks. Standing in the corner, for those of you who don't know, basically means staring at a wall with my hands at my side and no noise for 10 minutes or whatever arbitrary time. For a high energy kid like I was, it royally sucked. I hated it. But today was a special day. I also sometimes feel ill if I don't sleep. It's rare, but it was late at night this night and 10-year-old me starts to feel ill. It might not have been far past my bedtime, but it was clearly too late for my stomach. Me, I'm gonna be sick. Him, not believing me. Stay in the corner. Malicious compliance kicked in. So I stayed there. The next noise he hears from me is the gargling splashes of what contents of my stomach have just made a grand exit. I cover the wall and the carpet, and he promptly shouts at me to go to the bathroom. I had to clean it up after I was done puking, but I find it very amusing years later. He took it more seriously after that when I told him I have to go. That little kid. I bet you he was so mad. This reminds me so much of a story my older sister did. Me and my older sister are both pretty picky eaters, and my twin sister is not. But the one time my mom had my older sister stay at the dinner table and try and make her eat something she didn't want, which I think was bread. She didn't like sandwiches, so she tried to get her to eat bread. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And she stuffed it in her mouth, and as soon as she was done taking like 2 bites, she just threw up all on her plate. My mom was like, get out of here. That was the one and only time. I'm pretty sure my mom was just sick and tired of us not eating everything on our plate, and she was just like trying to get us to do it that time for real, and it didn't turn out good at all. You're only a builder. What the heck do you know? Just build a dang thing to spec. LTF, FTS, etc. This is fairly long, so there's a TLDR at the end. But this is one of my favorite stories from my hometown. It was long ago, so the specifics aren't that exact, but overall, the story is as it happened. I grew up in a small town community on an island off the coast of a thriving metropolitan area. It has its ups and downs, but it was generally pretty quiet sort of life. The community had a fairly large immigrant population from the various European countries, and one of those was, well, let's call him John. John the Builder. He and his numerous brothers had all moved to the island together and started a construction company. John was a big, affable man, easygoing and always smiling. He spoke excellent English, but had a thick accent. Some people assumed his accent meant his grasp of business was lacking, but usually not for long. Within a decade or so of him moving there, John and his brothers were pretty much the only builders of note on the island, and anything bigger than the garden shed would go through them. Around that time, my granddad retired and moved to the island with my grandma. He contracted John to help him build his retirement house, and they bonded over their mutual appreciation over really good concrete mix and pour. By then, John's family were good friends with ours too, so John and my grandpa kept in touch regularly, and would often get involved in discussions of building methods and Some years later, the old couple running the main petrol station in the town decided to sell up and retire, and the place was bought by Big Fuel Company. Big Fuel Company decided that the quaint old station and garbage was in dire need of a complete makeover and modernization, and drew up plans accordingly. After putting the work out for tender, they grudgingly accepted that with the cost of relocating and labor force from the mainland to the island for the work, John's construction firm was by far the most cost effective. They weren't happy about it though, and made it clear that they thought John and his brothers were a bunch of rural cowboys who couldn't be trusted to nail two planks together. Still, the contracts were signed and the blueprints delivered to John, as well as the usual amenities. The new station was to have a high, artistically stylish roof over the fuel pumps, held up by two support pillars. You know, that sort of thing. John read the plans, thought about the stiff sea breezes and the location was subject to, and frowned. He took the blueprints around to my granddad and discussed them. Possibly not entirely within the bounds of the contract, but John was concerned. The next day, John rang Big Fuel Company's contract and said in his thick accent, "This roof isn't going to stand up. The support pillar footings are too shallow, and the roof itself is too large for pillars that size. Plus, you haven't factored in the strength of the winds we get there. Everything else is fine, but you need to redesign that roof." "Rubbish," scoffed Big Fuel Company guy. "We had it designed by a very exclusive architect, and our engineers signed off on it. It's fine. You don't know what you're talking about." "Maybe," said John, "but I've been building here for 20 years, and I think you should go over my design again." "Don't be ridiculous. You're just trying to get the contract extended. We don't need to check the design. Now get building." Click. John, being a genuinely nice bloke, thought that maybe this was just one person being difficult, and also felt that this sort of thing should probably be in writing. Sat down and wrote a clear letter expressing his concerns about the fuel pump shelter, and sent it overnight to the Big Fuel Company office on the mainland. The next day, he got a call from Big Fuel Company office, from someone further up the ranks. "What the heck is this? Who do you think you are, trying to tell architects and engineers that they don't know what they're doing? You're only a builder. What the heck do you know? Just build the dang thing." "Could you put that in writing, please?" asked John. This is the point at which sensible manager would be given pause. When the contractor specifically asks for it in writing, you should probably ask why. "Fine," snarls the Big Fuel Company guy, and faxes through a terse note that he'd read the letter and considered it mistaken, and to get on with the construction. John shrugged, carefully filed the note, and went ahead with the build. A little over a month later, the new station was finished, roof and all. On a pleasantly gusty day, perfect for sailing, Big Fuel Company bigwigs flew over to see the results. Standing there with John and a curious crowd of locals, they watched the shiny new stylish roof, danced and swayed in the wind, in a manner decidedly unlikely to reassure anyone thinking of refueling their car underneath it. "What the freak is this?" inquired Big Fuel Company boss. "Just what I tried to warn you about," replied John. "BS. You screwed up the construction, and now you're trying to pin it on us? We're not paying for this. You're going to need to tear it down at your expense and build it right. It's built exactly to your blueprints," said John. "If you want it rebuilt, you have to pay for it. Preferably with a new design." "Not a chance. This is on you. And if you try to dodge responsibility for it, we'll sue." "Sounds good," said John. "See you in court." So the fuel station was cordoned off, and legal proceedings went ahead. I don't know much about them, but at some point I do know something like this happened. Judge: "Defense, you may call your first expert witness." John's lawyer: "Thank you, Your Honor. we call Professor Thornay's granddad, internationally recognized civil engineer who chaired the report into the redacted bridge collapse and was head of engineering at university for 25 years. Big Fuel Company's team legal. John's lawyer. Thank you for joining us, Professor. Would you please tell the court how you first learned about the project in question? My granddad. Of course. John first approached me with his concerns directly after receiving the blueprints. I agreed with the assessment, and I have since drawn up a brief report on the problems of the roof design. The details and supporting calculations are in pages 4 through 16, but if you don't mind, I'll just read the summary. I noted the following problems. Big Fuel Company legal team. Oh dang. With that and the note John had, it didn't take long to be settled. Big Fuel Company was on a hook for all of it, plus legal fees. They had to pay John to tear down the unstable roof and build a new one, designed by a different architect and checked by off-site engineers. Nonetheless, when John got new plans, he rang Big Fuel Company and said, "Hope you don't mind, I'm just gonna run these past the prof before we get started." TLDR, small town builder gets big contract spots, problems, and raises concerns. Is told to build the spec. Build suspect? Problem happens. Big company tries to blame it on small town builder and is dealt righteous retribution for the surprisingly well credentialed local. My god, who wrote this? An English major? They must have really thought this out. It was written almost like a book kinda. The funniest part is that they had to pay John again to break it down and rebuild it. Cause like, that was the cheapest way for them to do it. He did get his malicious compliance and a little bit of revenge in there. Got paid again to take it down, got paid again to build it back up. So he was in work for a little while, so that's good for him. This is almost like a positive situation, and didn't have to pay any legal fees too. Let's read one more short r/Maliciouscompliance story. Want a child ticket? Sorry man, I can't let you in. So here in the UK, a 15 rated film means that you have to be 15 to see the film. No exceptions. Back a few years ago, we had 2 ticket types in my cinema, adult and child. It said changed to incorporate a teen ticket. Child was under 15 and adult was anything above. This guy comes in with his mates, back of the queue to get in, but can be heard throughout the foyer, being all loud and obnoxious. And the generalization I found in my experience in the cinema is that if the teens on their own are loud and obnoxious in the foyer, there's a high chance they'll be the same during the film and generally be a nightmare in the screen. I start to notice some people in the queue looking over at him and rolling their eyes. I get the pleasure of serving this guy. Comes up to me, still shouting over his mates who are getting served by some of my colleagues, and asks for a ticket to see the 15 rated film. Can't remember which one. One of these low budget, bad horrors that come out in their mini sequels, recently Insidious or Sinister or Annabelle or whatever. He looks about 16 or 17, but since he had a ticket, work script autopilot takes over. And I ask how old he is, so I can tell him the correct ticket type. Him being the person he is, and probably since he's always gotten away with it before, to get a cheaper ticket price, he said he was 14. The moment he said that, a massive grin washes over my face. Sorry mate, this film's a 15. Holding back my glee, and not having to deal with this BS for the next 2 hours, I can't let you in. No amount of begging and pleading would make me budge, so he asked to speak to the manager. The manager comes down, sides with me, and he's on his way. Day ruined. Wait, did his friends go and see the movie too? I wish they would have said that. This is kind of like a petty revenge. This is really good though. That bratty little teen got what was coming to him. Entitled Gossipy Witch sabotages my totally legal romantic relationship with my former teacher, ruins her career, and runs us both out of town. How about I destroy yours and your entire family's whole life, lady? Insert obligatory throwaway account explanation. It applies. I come from a really small town. Think the lidless, most nothing happens here city, extended layover in your flyover state nightmares. And my hometown is even more quiet than that. Think half a mile or more between neighbors, a single main street downtown, one McDonald's, one department store, one movie theater with 3 screens where everyone goes there Friday and Saturday night. Church every Sunday, everyone knows everyone else, or at least knows their business. The whole city is invested in the fortunes of the high school football team, that sort of place. Graduating class of 60, not because the senior class was dumb, it was just a tiny school. I didn't really fit in at school, and kinda was a loner by choice. I cringe about it now that I am almost 26, but I was a wannabe emo goth rocker. I still got invited to a party with other kids, not because they liked me necessarily, but because I just wanted as many people to invite. My mom baked cookies and cakes for church, and when she wasn't doing that, she cut her hair in the town's one salon. My dad owned an internet cafe for a while when those were hot. Once everyone in our little nowhere town got Wi-Fi, he turned it into a tax service. Business is always slow because most people did their own taxes, but he didn't really depend so much on his business. He served 20 years as a petty officer in the Navy, and so he and my mom got by on his pension. In high school, I worked at a private burger place that competed mostly unsuccessfully against the town's single chain fast food restaurant. My boss always told me I should ask my mom to cut my hair and to stop looking like a dang girl. No thanks, old man. So with all this boredom everywhere, you can imagine that the sensation Miss Amber Fontaine caused when the high school hired her to be the 11th and 12th grade English teacher. Miss Fontaine was of French extraction and had moved to America in her later teens to go to college in New York. She was only 24 and very beautiful. She spoke perfect English, but did so with a very pleasant accent. Obviously, all the guys loved her, and lots of women hated her. She appeared oblivious to all the attention, however, and just stuck to her job. Really, we didn't know too much about her. She mostly kept to herself, and nobody ever saw her hanging out with any men in town. And it wasn't for lack of men's trying. It soon became clear that she wasn't into dating any of the men in her city had to offer. Much later, I found out that she had just taken a job in our small town to gain experience, with the future goal of being a college professor in a big city. A sort of a 2-year plan. Obviously, I had a crush on her. We all did. It was still a small, church-going town, so nobody really acted out on his urges, or tried to harass her or anything like that. As guys, we talk about how hot she was amongst ourselves. Usual locker room stuff teenage boys do, but that was it. My one real out of school experience with Miss Fontaine was when she stopped by a burger joint I worked at and saw me working there. She told me I had a nice smile and that she wished I smiled more because in school I was always frowning because I was in my emo everyone sucks phase. When the food preppers came up with her food and handed it to me to give to her, I was impressed and not at all surprised that she ordered a salad. She didn't strike me as someone who ate the greasier slop we sold here. In school, the following Monday she smiled at me in the hall and I smiled back. She said, "You're learning," but not in a condescending or patronizing way, just a fun, kidding way, and I exchanged a smile with her every time after. And that was the extent of my great high school romance with Miss Fontaine. Exchanged a few hellos and smiles during my senior year when I was 17. Things changed the following year though. I was 18 and still working at the burger joint when Miss Fontaine comes into the restaurant. "Oh, hey, OP," she says, and she asks with real seriousness, "Are you going to college?" I tell the truth. I'm working with my band. I cringe about this period of my life too. Playing guitar and saving money for community college. Only sort of the truth about the last thing. Honestly, most of my money I spent on weed and ecstasy. I was the main vocalist in addition to being the guitarist, and our band's only other member were Jerry, the bassist, and Gabe, the drummer. Both of them were just out of high school, like me, and like me, they had no plans to go to college. Gabe worked at the same burger joint as me, and Jerry, who had been one of my best friends in high school, ironically worked at the chain fast food restaurant down the street from my restaurant. Our lives at this time revolved around wasting our youth, skateboarding, getting high, and playing our punk band. We like to think that we played an emo punk metal fusion, but looking back, our sound hasn't aged well. Miss Fontaine tells me that now she's in her 2nd year of teaching, she has a better sense of how to do things. She tells me that she wished that her current students were as well behaved and put as much effort as me. I earned mediocre grades throughout high school, but consistently earned an A in English because I like to read. She says she'll see me around. A few days later, she comes into the restaurant again, and we get to talking, and she asks me if I'd like to go to the movie. I can tell she's bored because there's really no one her own age to hang out with in our town. Or, if there are, they're all lame. I think we both get the feeling that it's natural we should hang out. And now, I was completely out of high school, and she wasn't my teacher, and we were both adults. By this time, I was newly 18, and she had just turned 25. Why not? So that's how it started. We met up in the early evenings, totally innocent, and go to the movies. Or to dinner at the one good restaurant in town. Miss Fontaine was cool about letting me slide when it came to paying for our dates because she knew I made minimum wage. It was actually me who started to push our relationship to the next level. After a while, I started to hold her hand when we walked places. And finally, we started kissing. Never in front of anyone. She taught me a lot of French words and phrases over the next summer and fall. While we were going out, my parents knew I was sort of dating my former teacher, but since it was keyword former, they didn't really raise any stink about it. Miss Fontaine would always try to convince me to go to college, but she did see our band play a few times when we got a rare gig at a roller rink, and she was nice enough not to tell us what she really thought of us. We didn't have sex until we'd been dating casually for nearly 2 months. That was my idea too, but she admitted that she really liked me and she wanted it to happen ever since we reconnected earlier that year, after I had graduated. I'm not the kiss and tell type, but my bandmates sort of knew the dynamic in my relationship with Miss Fontaine. She had been Amber ever since we first made out. They appeared cool with it. I stopped doing so much dope and really begun putting money away to save for college. The JC near my house was super cheap. Amber would often tell me she thought about applying there for work, but said that she really wanted to move to West Coast or back to the East Coast to teach at a college. Eventually, she told me she'd like me to come with her. After a few months, I was in love with Amber, and she was in love with me too. She said, we didn't throw our relationship in people's faces or show public affection, but it's not like we pretended not to know each other either. Amber had come around the house and my parents really liked her and thought she was a great influence on me. I didn't expect to cut my hair, but I was neater and more presentable. And eventually, I really did begin enrolling in GE classes at my local 2-year. But then, things went downhill fast. Out of seemingly nowhere, Amber got a call for a meeting from the local school board. And this is my secondary account of the situation, as Amber was the one there, not me. There had been reports that she was dating a former student, romantically. They were talking about me, and that she was having sexual relationship with said student while he was still a minor and still attending high school. Of course, she denied everything. Of course, they believed nothing. She had sent me a desperate text, and since ours is a small town, I think I've mentioned that a couple times already, I was at the meeting in literally 10 minutes. I told him the truth, that I was in Miss Fontaine's class in 12th grade, and that I was her student. That was all. I told the truth that we were reconnected several months after graduation, and only then did we begin dating. And I was over 18. The opinion of the board was essentially, look son, we appreciate the noble effort you're making to defend your friend's honor, but we're looking for the truth here, not omissions. I insisted that I was telling the truth and not trying to cover anything up. After a lot of tears, Amber was simply warned that it wasn't becoming of a teacher to be seen with students outside of campus, even if they're former students. And we assumed that was all. We were really wondering who had complained about us, or who would make up the tales about us having sex while I was still a minor and a student of Amber's. I was staying at Amber's apartment by this time. I kicked in a portion of the rent, of course. I had even met her parents, albeit only on webcam. They were good people. They don't speak a lot of English, but Amber filled them in with the missing pieces. They knew my age, and they were cool about it. We assumed it was just a small town gossip, and it would blow over. Boy, were we wrong. Over the next several weeks, Amber's meeting with the school board, vicious rumors started to spread. I won't insult your imagination. You know what people were saying. One day, my boss at the burger joint just told me he had to let me go. Some flim-flam excuse about the store losing money, and my hairstyle was driving away customers. Whatever, dude. Amber told me it wasn't my fault, and she promised to support me when I look for another job. But then one day, she got fired too. She was working as a probationary teacher, meaning that during her first 2 years, she could be fired for any reason, and actually, no reason had even been given. Explanations were for those who earned the tenure. We both knew why she was getting fired, but the district strongly implied that it was simply because she was an ineffective teacher. In her defense, I looked at the data on the district website, and the number of students from our school who did well on standardized tests in her subject area leaped by double-digit points during the time she was a teacher there. Her numbers were far above state average, and to this day, since her departure, the same scores have nosedived. Amber told me that students tended to respond to her, and that she was very popular among the students. It was true that she was immensely popular when I was a student, and I'll assume the same carried true to the year after I graduated. Aside from the obvious fact that she was eye candy, she was simply a good teacher, a good person, and that's why the kids liked her. Lots of students threatened to riot when she was fired, but being a non-dramatic, non-attention-seeking person she is, Amber asked them just to focus on their studies and doing well, and helping their new teacher adjust he or she arrived to take her place. My dad told her she ought to sue the district, but Amber didn't want the drama. Besides, she said she was allowed to resign, so that it wouldn't show up on her record as of having been fired. Also, she said that the district promised not to try to revoke her teaching credential. Her own parents suggested maybe she had to come home, to France, but she insisted on sticking it out in America. My parents were cool and they offered to let her move in with us while she figured out her life. She's lucky that her parents are well off because they gave her some money to relocate to California. She asked me please come with her, that she loves me, and that we could start new there. I've always wanted to move to California, so I jumped at the chance. My parents were happy that I was in a relationship with a good person who obviously cared about me and gave us some money too. We got an apartment together in Los Angeles area. Neither of us drove, so we both got bikes to get around. Our new area was a world apart from our old life. Though I know Amber's own teenage years were in Paris, so Los Angeles would have been much of a culture shock to her. I immediately enrolled in a local community college and got a job as a waiter in a popular French restaurant. Our gimmick was that some of the servers actually spoke French. Over the last several months, Amber had taught me a lot of French, so I was a very popular server at the restaurant because I gave it authenticity. Unfortunately for Amber, the school district misled her about teaching license. When they promised not to have her license revoked, they spoke the truth, but they left out the part where they attached an official reprimand to it, accused her of an inappropriate relationship with students under her charge. So whenever Amber applied for teaching jobs, this would immediately come up as a red flag on her applications. Another surprise red flag was that the school she applied to would notice that she was fired from her last job. "No, I wasn't," she'd say. "I resigned." "Yeah, but it says you were forced to resign to avoid termination for cause." Amber was 7 years older than me, but I think in some ways I know a lot more about how nasty Americans can be than her. Everywhere she went, doors would slam career-wise. She appealed to the state teaching license organization and they said they'd look into it, but months later, nothing came up. Calls to her former school resulted in getting a runaround. No one knew anything. So for the next several months, I was paying our day-to-day bills and helping to support Amber. Though I must acknowledge that the loans both our sets of parents gave us helped tremendously, and we couldn't survive without them. Finally, one day, Amber tells me, "You know what? Screw trying to teach public schools. Oh, and OP, I'm pregnant." So 2 pieces of good news. Many months later, Amber and I are happily married. Wedding was beautiful in sunny Los Angeles. Amber's parents and mine and our other families had all attended. We had a pregnant honeymoon in France, and now we have a son, Youre. I'm closing in on earning my associates in information technology. I've been promoted to maitre at the restaurant and have health benefits for my wife and son. We live in a studio apartment, but at least it's a huge studio. And that's enough for now. Amber stays home with the baby, but she also teaches online English and French courses for a private school. So even though she's blacklisted from teaching in the public K-12 district, she can still teach, which is her passion. More months pass and I got my first job in IT, troubleshooting computers for a small company downtown. I make double what I used to make at the restaurant, and my employer has a program where I can finish my bachelor's while I work, and they will subsidize 50% for free, and the other 50% they will dock from my pay in small monthly installments. Sounds like an amazing deal, and I take it. We moved to a bigger apartment. Amber is making her awesome contribution both as a mother and to our finances with her tutoring. We're planning for her to eventually go back to school for her graduate degrees so she can finally fulfill her dream of teaching in college. Oh, more good news? OP, I'm pregnant again. Life is sweet. So while everything is going awesome, one day, I get a text from my mom. She was at a local school board meeting with her neighbors regarding a bill proposal to hire more teachers. Apparently, over the past few years, the population has grown and the high school needed to expand. So now, it's a 2-horse town, my mom says. While she was at a meeting, my mom ran into Jerry's mom. Jerry was a bassist for my own band that I quit once I got into a serious relationship with Amber. My mom never met Jerry or his mom, or at least in the way that connected them to me. The reason was because I never brought Jerry around our house. Because for a couple years, Jerry was my drug supplier. He had the hookup for anything you wanted. Well, what does all this have to do with anything? My mom doesn't know Jerry's mom, but she hears her and some lady talking about me and Amber. My mom heard them saying that Jerry had been the one to tell everyone about Amber and me supposedly having sex before I graduated. And his mom went straight to the school board. Their names as informers were protected under confidentiality. I had lost touch with Jerry over the years and had stopped playing music with him long ago. I knew he had resented all the time I was spending with my chick. It's a shame because he used to be such a good friend of mine. It sucked that he was getting behind my now wife and mother of my child and soon to be children fired from her career. Jerry's mom was a teacher at Amber's former school of employment. It became a joke of ours that his mom had a huge stick in her butt regarding prim and proper behavior and was a goody two-shoes teacher whose poop don't stink. Yet her kid Jerry, a student at her school, is basically the biggest drug dealer in town. Also, looking back, I know he had a crush on Amber too and probably always resented that I got to be in a relationship with her and he didn't. Maybe it's because she knows quality, you jerk. I was interested in learning that Jerry's mom was now on the school board. I didn't tell Amber about this all right away. I just asked her to let me know what she remembered about Miss Jerry's mom. She told me that Jerry's mom was always really mean to her and often one of the main instigators in getting everyone, the adults, on campus to exclude her from teacher social activities. It's one of the main reasons why Amber didn't make friends with the other teachers. Amber tells me that the male teachers tended to be nicer to her at first, but the female teachers overwhelmingly despised her before they even knew her. Jerry's mom, Amber told me, was also the teacher she knows who started a petition not to renew her contract for a second year at the school. This was the first I heard about this. Evidently, only a few female teachers signed the petition, but the petition was placed in Amber's permanent file as evidence that the staff lacks confidence in her. They were basically setting her up to be fired even though she was doing a good job at teaching and the students liked her. Well, I'm more Cali than Iowa these days, but I still keep in touch with a few friends, now grown up, I knew in school, including Gabe, the drummer from our old band. From what I hear, Jerry manages the burger joint I used to work at, because the old guy who owns it is retired. I have a social media account, but only use it to contact people in emergencies. I never update anything. My profile is practically blank online. I'm not one of those people who checks it daily or uploads pics of my lunch. Didn't post about marrying or having kids or moving to LA. I told people matter directly. Jerry was still my friend on social media even though we stopped talking ages ago. So I clicked his profile. Yep, he definitely managed the old place of employment. I clicked on his friends and family's profiles and recognized his mom, my old history teacher. She was on the school board now, sanctimonious as ever. I think I mentioned before that I came from a small town, and in a small town, there often isn't anything for bored kids to do other than do dumb stunts or do drugs. And for the biggest loser kids of all, the group that included me, we were dumb enough to record ourselves partying and talking junk and doing that aforementioned drugs. That's exactly what my band used to do all the time. Whenever we had a show, we'd go around taping ourselves using our cell phones. We'd take a video of us rocking out, skating, drinking beer at the vacant lot, take video of us getting high. We'd also talk to the camera. I hadn't thought about the old recordings in years, but I never erased them from my old phones. I'm the kind of guy who hoards his cell phones, not because I think they will increase the value or that I find them especially interesting, but I kind of think of them like file cabinets of my past because I don't erase anything, aside from phone numbers. I don't really transfer data on one phone to a successor, easy as it would be. My current boss knows I used to do drugs, and they don't care. In IT, I'm told everyone used to get lit, and many still do. I asked my wife offhand if her new job knows about what happened in our old town. She says yeah, but they don't care about any of that. They only care that she teaches expert level conversational French. That's what their clients, many of them traveling professionals, demand. Many of her co-workers, she tells me, had a few felonies on their records, but her employer was a firm believer in rehabilitation. Copacetic. So I check some of my old videos and find what I need. I have no trouble finding videos of Jerry getting high as a mother effer. That was practically every video. And in practically every video, he brags about his parents know he's a druggie and a dealer and want to ship him off to the army and make a man out of him. The video I really want is, nope, it's not on this phone. Maybe the LG? Nope, just more of Jerry rolling on ecstasy at a rave we snuck in out of state to attend when we were in 11th grade. Maybe my old Galaxy? Bingo. Jerry talks about how his mom knows all about the drug use and sometimes even smokes weed herself with his dad, and how they caught him with cocaine once and yelled at him and his dad kicked his butt. But then Jerry came home the next day from school to find his mom was coked out on the kitchen table and that she had called in sick that day. The video was time-stamped. I think that'll do. I still don't tell Amber. It would only upset her in her condition. But I asked my mom to contact the info of all the people who run the little town school board. I already know the school's basic email address, and I graduated not too long ago, and so most of the administrators are still mid-career at my former high school. I still have their emails. I make a throwaway email account and attach the relevant video to it, and send it to everyone that matters in town. All the teachers, the administrators, even from the elementary and middle schools. The church, the pizza place, the burger joint owner, the roller rink boss, you name it, they got the files. The files where Jerry exposes himself as a coked out drug dealer with his mom having full knowledge of the fact and her husband even indulging in the drugs himself. The next day, Amber asks me while she's feeding our son, "Honey, why are you so happy?" I tell her and she starts crying. "No, I'm not sad," she reassures me. "I'm just so happy you did this for me." Then me, Amber, Rachule, and our bun in the oven goes for a walk because such a nice day. Still, need a haircut. Not getting one. Do I even need to say what happened afterward? All this ancient history shouldn't matter, but in a small town, it's devastating. The videos are just of Jerry talking trash. Who knows if they even tell the truth? Doesn't matter. In a small town, gossip becomes gospel. Kind of how everyone believed me and Amber were screwing before I turned 18, even though that was 0% true and they ran us out of town on a rail. My parents had to endure the fallout of my disgrace when I left town years ago with my French tramp, as all the idle busybodies have dubbed my wife. My mom and dad made their peace with it and have numbed themselves to the slurs, and always stood up for us. They are what's good about small town America. Jerry got fired from his job, police searched his house, and that is to say, his mom's house, and found a lot of drugs. Evidently, when the rumors went flying that Miss Jerry's mom had a drug-dealing son, kids busted for drugs at the high school caved under pressure to admit who hooked them up. Oopsie, so he was telling the truth. Jail for you, cock-blocking D-bag. His mom was summarily dismissed from her job, along with the appropriate blacklisting that being a drug-abusing, child-endangering, fraud-committing public official essentials. My mom wasn't clear on the details, but there's a possibility she and her husband might face jail time too. It came out that Jerry's dad had been cheating on his wife for years with a woman from the church. Jerry's whole family and persona non grata. They want to leave town but can't pending court case. Until then, they'll just be hated to their face. I'll hate them from across the country. Small town. Everyone knows everyone. Or at least their business. Which means sooner or later, word will slip. People will drop the "it's confidential" charade and figure out that I was responsible for a family's downfall. I don't give a freak. Jerry, you listening? Good. Come at me, bro. Remember at the beginning when I said I knew this had to be a good story? That was an understatement. I know like 3 stories ago I said that was my favorite story about the teacher, but this teacher story is even better. This is crazy. This is written like a novel almost. I cannot believe he sent that video to everyone, like the freaking owner of the burger place too, and the church people. That sabotage, that revenge. This is not pro-revenge. He's not a professional. This is nuclear revenge. He nuked that entire family's life. They got exactly what was coming to him. Jerry for being a snitch, his mom for being a snitch to the school goddamn council, Jerry's dad just cause he's Jerry's dad cheating. I enjoyed this story to an extreme amount. I'm saving this. Again guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like the robot voice videos, remember that is on our 2nd channel. This channel from now on is going to be me reading with my voice or reacting to other videos and stuff from Reddit. Thank you guys so much for staying to the end of this long video. This will probably be the longest video I have ever made so far, aside from my live streams obviously. If you are subscribed or if you are not subscribed, remember to hit that bell and hit to get all notifications. I do post once a day on this account. Thank you guys again for watching and listening to this amazing story about this crazy entitled gossipy witch. I hope I see you guys next time, and goodbye.